Lets it go. He's got three people down there. The ball's up in the air. Caught. Touchdown. Caught by Westbrook for a touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
I'm flat out coming. This is real. This ain't no ESPN or this ain't one of the networks you just happen to see me on. I'm right in front of you. You know why? Because I'm coming.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Stewart pitches it to Salon. Buffalo score. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
We got a few positions already taken care of because I'm bringing my luggage with me. And it's Louis.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Three running backs behind Johnson. Johnson himself, is he in? Yes! Oh my goodness! Ball game. Look out, they're all over the field. The fans are streaming onto the field as if Missouri won. Oh my goodness! And yet on the other sideline, the CU Buff team is running onto the field as if they won.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Beautiful punt. Bloom to the 20. Daylight. 40. Here comes the mogul man. Touch to the outside. Foot race. Touchdown, Colorado.
Now here's David Smoak and Paul Catalina.
All right, here we go on 365 Sports. Craig Smoak on vacation throughout the entire week. He was here with Paul with all the heavy work, with all the drama, and then a change. Colorado, of course, that's old news now, is a part of the Big 12 starting next week, and immediately, okay, who's next? And so that clock begins. We will hear today from Matt McChesney, a former Colorado defensive lineman, his thoughts about the Buffaloes headed to the Big 12. I was kind of able to listen to some of the segments along the way, sitting on the beach with my brothers, enjoying a great time with them. But interesting what a week it was, and my goodness, the hammer came down, and now the question is, what is next? Who is next? Arizona seems to be at least a team, popularity-wise, based on who might be whom, on the clock next, but who knows? And we'll, of course, pay attention to them and everybody else the rest of this week.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of come to the conclusion that Arizona and Colorado I think Arizona would be kind of silly not to come at this point. I don't know what the Pac-12 can promise them to keep them in the fold. But I also don't know if that's necessarily would be the end for the Pac-12. It would just kind of end it right there. But for now, if the Big 12 really doesn't want to go to 16, I do think there are logistical issues that a lot of these leagues want to figure out at 16 and 14 and all of that, that they may want to run through before they start going, you know what, we can do 20 because the Big Ten and SEC right now don't know if they can handle 16. And football's easy. Everybody, like when it comes to football scheduling, you're talking about one game a week. You have to do that, 12 times minimum, a maximum of, when the 12-team playoff comes, like 15, 16 times.
Right.
Like that's not hard to do. I could make, plane tickets for all four of us in this room 16 times and not really feel all that stressed about it. But if you told me that I had to do it all over the country for a bunch of sports that aren't going to make us money within a much smaller budget for what they have and pulling out of the money I've made for football, then my life gets a lot more stressful.
Yeah, Dan Lanning, the head coach at Oregon, who's had a history, of course, in the Pac-12, saying about Oregon and Colorado, with Colorado leaving the Pac-12, his quote, "I'm trying to remember what they won to affect this conference."
Well, if you take 50% of the equation, he's totally right. But this has nothing to do with that.
No, it doesn't.
At all. Look, if winning had to do with anything, if you had some sort of benchmark you had to clear to get in a major conference, then there'd only be 30 teams in major conferences. Because if you had to regularly do things, then there would only be like 30, 40 teams that really qualify. Because there are teams all over every major conference that are historically bad and, not bringing anything to the table. Like, I could signal out anybody in any league that's not great, and I don't think we need to pile on. But unfortunately, for Dan Lanning's comment there, and I really like Dan Lanning, that's only part of the equation.
Well, one of the things that I've seen from, of course, afar and just kind of dropping in and out from Wednesday, driving to Dallas, and that show was phenomenal along with Thursday and Friday. But one of the things that I saw was the immediate, tell me if I'm wrong, because I tried to stay out of it as much as I could, but it's hard because it has been like a 2-year cycle of all this realignment discussion from Texas and Oklahoma, then USC and UCLA. And it's almost, it seems like there was an immediate switch from those who said no one would ever leave or wanted to leave to now let's downgrade the team that left. And listen, Colorado's got warts, but they also do have, and I don't know, would this have happened if Deion was not the head coach?
I mean, I think it might have just because Brett Yormark had the goals, but I think that Deion was the cherry on top. And, and look, I don't think that, I don't know Brett Yormark. I mean, I met him one time at Big 12 Media Days this year, and I was just fascinated with his acumen. But I do wonder if that Deion is going to help our TV deal thing, and we're not going shopping together combined from George Kliavkov didn't go, oh, is he now? Are you now?
It's the prime impact or effect or whatever you call it.
It doesn't it affects, it helps the news right now because look, Deion's there, everything's exciting, that like the future is brighter at Colorado than it's ever been. If you're just going to go snag Colorado, who's been Colorado and the coach is still Carl Durrell, then I almost rather get UConn.
And Rick George may have not been energized to make this happen. Think about what he's done in the last 6 to 9 months. And I'm going to steal part of this from as I'm on my way down from Love Field in Dallas to Waco yesterday evening. I listened to one of his podcasts from last week, and one of the things he's talking about, and of course, Joe Klatt, I'm talking about, is a Colorado grad. He played there. He's a quarterback there, and very much one of the high names that you like to hear his opinion on college football, whether you agree or not. But in the last 6 to 8, 9 months, Rick George, the AD, just got a football program, and there's that pivot of when no one was going to leave. Well, we're not going to miss them or San Diego State. That's fine. People can have their own narratives. He just took a football program, an athletic department that was 1-11 last year, and they now get the same amount of money as everybody else in the Big 12 when they arrive next year. That might be AD of the year work, along with hiring a guy that has given them some energy, however that may turn out.
Well, look, and this one for Colorado and the Pac-12, although talking to both Jim Williams and Pat Crakes last week, I mean, it's harder to figure how they're going to get a TV deal now, especially how can you negotiate with a television partner if when you go back to the room, you go, is everybody in here? 1, 2, 3. There's only 7 people in here. Where are the other 2 guys? Are they coming? Are they coming to tell it? Like, you're going to have to do that for a long time until you do get this deal and it's satisfactory and locked down. So I don't know how they make it work. But if you are Colorado, it's not maybe the sense that the Pac-12 won't get a TV deal done, because I think, honestly, if they just decided to stay all together and ride it out, they would have gotten one done. It's that you have as much excitement around your football program as there's been since, if you heard the highlight in the open,
right,
since Cordell Stewart threw that ball to Michael Westbrook. Since that moment, this is the most excitement that you've had about this program. And if you just leave it up to the gods to determine the TV deal, then you might squander it. because then the decision wouldn't be made for you. It'd be made around you.
Yeah.
And you'd be scrambling because...
And would you look like Will Smith in that empty room looking for furniture?
You would. You might be because, again, Dan Lanning made the point. Colorado's done nothing in the Pac-12. They've done nothing at all to make you think like, oh, man, this isn't USC leaving or the greatest basketball program the conference has ever seen and one of the top 5 ever in the history, if not the top 1 or 2 in the history of round ball, that is leaving your conference in the biggest major market you could possibly imagine. No, this is a team that came in, hasn't been very good, is going back to where they came from. So, yeah, on the surface, it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But but it's all about other things.
But think about it. They've gone 1-11. They hired Deion Sanders, and they're now a part of the Big 12 starting next year with how many millions more or not than they were going to get, but at least they know the number. Isn't that all of what has always been the story for the last year when it comes to the Pac-12 and George Kliavkoff? It has always been this question, whether it is we're close or getting close, and I know that's been like retread city here, but what is the question? What is the number? And if that number could have ever truly been given, if it could have even been given X, give or take $5 million, would the Pac-12 be where they are today? And Colorado at 1-11, where I now see where there's a lot of that, we're not going to miss them. Okay, that's fine. But it may not be Colorado at 1-11 that you might miss. It might be what is the shrapnel. I hate to use that word because that's military, but it might be what else is the shrapnel based on Colorado leaving and who is next, if anybody, from that conference.
Yeah. By the way, we just got an email from Matt McChesney. He has to postpone it tomorrow. Something came up at his work.
Damn. Okay.
All right. He's postponing to tomorrow. But I didn't want to get to the break and you go, Matt McChesney.
Well, that gives us Eric Morris, North Texas football coach, today at around 3:45. So it gives us plenty of time to get into what we have to discuss here to start this show today.
Yeah, but repeat your last question because it.
All right.
Just so we.
My last question is: to me, if those who want to, and there are, you could see this immediately with notes and quotes and history and all that, is it Colorado leaving the conference after 1-11? It may not even be the biggest part of the story. It is what will the shrapnel be that follows Colorado leaving. If there's room for a team that's 1-11, that has history with the Big 12, and they get full shares, and there may only be 1 or 3 seats available for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Then to me, it's not even Colorado. It's Colorado. Good for them. But who is next, if anybody, and if there's somebody else, there's 1 seat or 3 seats available, and now depends on what happens, if anything, which is what we said, if in fact Colorado ever left.
I think that the 1 seat thing is just so they create some urgency. The way described it last week was the McRib is here for a limited time. Make sure you get one, kind of a thing. Because if the 3 schools called them in succession and said we'll take the deal. Right. Even if there's not that Fox part of it worked out yet, I'm pretty sure that they could call Fox up and be like, hey, what do we do here?
I wanted McRib. I wanted you to use the McRib analogy. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, because that's you don't just say, like, we're taking one and nobody else. Because say Arizona calls you today, and then on Tuesday night, Oregon calls and say, hey, we heard Arizona call you. Can we get the spot over them? And they're like, well, why don't you just come with them?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying any of that's happening, but I think that part of that is strategy when it comes to it and expanding the Big 12 and going for those Pac-12 remnants, if that's what it is. But the other thing, and I mentioned this about the ACC last week, and we'll talk about what I think are some kind of ridiculous ACC rumors running around. I think what's going to ultimately happen with the ACC will happen a lot faster with a team like Oregon or Washington, because there's a great chance that Oregon and Washington are in the 12-team playoff next year.
Yeah,
great chance.
They're really
recruiting really well.
Yep.
Like, even though they're both going to lose their quarterbacks, you've got really good head coaches. Like, there's a really good shot that that's going to be your Pac-12 champion next year, and in the 12-team playoff, and maybe even making a run to the very end. And so they can make a run to the very end. Some of these teams, and they're going to wake up in the morning after they win it all. And if they're not in the SEC and the Big Ten, they're going to look at the bottom rung of those conferences and go, well, Rutgers doesn't give a crap, and they're getting twice as much money.
With all due respect, Vanderbilt, Rutgers. Heck, it might even be Minnesota or Nebraska, or they're all getting the same amount from the Big Ten, and of course the lower level, or whoever that might be in the SEC.
But if you're Oregon or Washington or long-term Clemson and FSU, like those teams that are going to be trying all the time, and I'm not saying that Rutgers isn't trying, and Vanderbilt, like they kind of are rolling out that they're trying to hit the accelerator, but that's the thing that's going to bug them is that, well, why us? And look, right now you don't have to look at the leagues that are the SEC and the Big Ten. If you're the Pac-12, you're going to go, Georgia Tech's making more money than me?
And Georgia Tech, you know what? They're not going to apologize for that.
No, they don't have to.
And don't you think that is what eventually leads to Armageddon?
I do, because
it's still hard to get there because of the grant of rights, but that might eventually lead to, my God, I don't care. We have to figure this out.
Everybody's going to look for their own best interest, and why am I not hitting the most of my media dollars? And that's where it's going to lead, which I don't think is going to be good, because ultimately people are going to, I don't know, it's going to probably take your generation, my generation, and one more, like passing through this world for people to not care anymore, because we're all going to remember, like, hey, wasn't it great when you didn't like the school that was like 90 miles away from you? And then you're like, yeah, that was great. We played them. Now we play one that's 900 miles away.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel the same way about it.
Mr. Monkey says on the chat room, is Jason Shear on today? No, he's not, but I have traded text with him today. In fact, I have another voice that covers Arizona that we'll have at some point either today or tomorrow, who covers Arizona. Also, we'll have to obviously move Matt McChesney back, former Colorado lineman, to tomorrow. Mac Rhodes back with us tomorrow. And then there is a writer who covers Utah. I don't think Utah has any interest at all in leaving the Pac-12, and why would they? They've won it the last couple of years, and they seem to be pretty happy. But just check in with them, not as if they might be next, but, again, part of the story. One of the things you have to be careful of, and I saw Ross Dellinger tweet this out earlier today, don't believe everything you read, and don't believe that there's nothing else going on, or something of that nature when it comes to realignment. So we appreciate all of you who are on today. The chat room, Jack McKenzie here in studio, Garrett Ross running the mothership. So Eric Morris, UNT football coach, they're changing the name of their stadium in Denton. That's going to help them with some money. And then get ready, Dave Softy Mahler from KJR, one of maybe our best friends ever on this show, or the shows we've done the last almost decade and a half, who covers the University of Washington. His passion about that. And then what a weekend it was in baseball. We'll take a sidestep just for a segment at the end of the 4 o'clock hour with Jared Sadler on all the trades, Max Scherzer, and much more. And the Angels pick something up and what's going on with a lot of that. And then, of course, the Cowboys in the NFL having their training camp. Sergeant Pickles, Yarmark needs to find a way to either get the Big Two left in the Pac-12 or a pair of top-level ACC teams. Otherwise, the gap widens further. The issue there is, do those two at the top of the Pac-12 have interest, or will they be almost forced into interest? And/or, Paul, the ACC teams can't do anything.
No,
They're stuck.
Can't.
They're in concrete. It's like they have been caught by the mafia, put concrete discs around their ankles, and thrown into the pond, and maybe they'll get lucky enough to survive at some point.
So I think a lot of this buzz about Florida State and then tangentially Clemson started from Chris Nee of 24/7, of Knowles 24/7, who's an unbelievable recruiting reporter, really covers them very well. It's the FSU site that I actually subscribe to, and because they do a great job. Brendan Sinone's over there, and he did a podcast saying, like, kind of addressing the issue. And if you listen to the podcast, we would be proud of the way he presented it.
Right.
Here are the issues. Now, his theory, which is not easily covered in a tweet, is that FSU is going to be the one who, over this time, to figure out whatever grant of rights issues there are to figure out, if there are any to figure out for them to get out of it, is the one who's going to keep sticking their neck out.
Right.
Because they're going to keep chirping their brand over and over and over again to make sure people don't forget it over this time. They have to. Their AD has been very...
But they don't have to chirp, not anymore. I could see if this was 3 or 5 years ago because they weren't very good. after Jameis. Paul, they're really good. They're going to be in the news throughout the season.
But they do, they just want to make sure that you don't forget about them. And something to remember about Florida State, they had a retiring president and essentially an interim AD for about 3.5 years. And it really put them behind the 8 ball when it came to kind of all the things you need to do to build a big program. They've got a new president, they've got a new athletic director, and both of those people are out there now. Their job is to, okay, we got through this interim period where the university was where it was. We need to take them to the next decade. So you're going to hear these things over and over again and repeated about brand and the ACC and the financial gap and how do we make that up. But at the end of the day, unless you've got Johnny Cochran, Clarence Darrow, and whoever else you want to put on the legal super team to figure out this grant of rights, this is not like any of the other situations. Texas and OU had to pay out a year.
Yep.
Everybody else had.
Was it $80 million?
Yeah.
Each?
The AAC teams, their deal was negotiable because of the way it was. So they had to pay out.
It wasn't as big a buyout either.
It wasn't as big a buyout, so they were able to spread it out over a couple years, especially with the new money you're going to be making, they can afford to. USC, UCLA, and Colorado have to pay the Pac-12 $0
because
and 0
they're leaving
cents.
when there's no contract.
There's no contract or no grant of rights. So all these other things, when the Big 12 happened before, the TV deal had not been signed yet, so Nebraska and Colorado had to pay like 2 years of exit fee.
And also did not get everything immediately.
No.
I think a couple of them,
A&M and Missouri had to pay like a year of exit fee. And there was the fee, and the things were also a little bit different a decade ago because the new, more ironclad grant of rights became a big deal when all that went down. So this does not fit any of that because I don't care. And listen, I would be the happiest man in the world, and I wouldn't even knock on people's doors. I'd be so conceited. I'm just coming into the house if I'm FSU, and I win 8 of the next 12 national championships. At the end of it, even if they do that, the grant of rights is still the grant of rights, and they still are locked into it.
Yeah, it's so really, how much has changed since I haven't been on the air in a week? How much has really changed? One thing. Am I right? Colorado's gone. They're leaving. Has anything else in college football realignment changed at all? Which, of course, there had to be someone first to start whatever the next kickstart of what's happening. So other than Colorado leaving the Pac-12, which many people swore would never happen, and even maybe they didn't think they would leave, what has happened next? So if, in fact, Arizona's next, and there have been, and Jason Shear and others, I talked to a couple of different, texted with somebody who covers Arizona about maybe they're next. Don't look for that to happen at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. It takes time. But, because how long, in fact, Garrett, Paul, how long did it take for Colorado to pull the trigger?
I mean,
months.
Yeah.
Actually, months. Basically a year.
Yeah, but I mean, they've known that nothing's changed on the media deal since at least Christmas, right? I mean, so, okay, we're going to negotiate the TV deal.
Nothing's changed since USC and UCLA walked up or said
at
they were
least
leaving.
When he announces it in July, I would, if I'm Colorado, I'm not going to assume that, during the season it's really going to get done, and then you hear Christmas, and then the thing that made it worse was in the middle of all that. That's when the Big 12 did theirs. Cut in line. So the Big 12 does theirs, and then around Christmas you start thinking, well, we should probably get ours, and then you hear well, it's Christmas break. I mean, who's gonna negotiate then? And then pretty much every
people who need a new deal,
pretty much every TV executive is
I saw a lot of the what you would call receipts from either people who were popping off at others and how again turf war nasty it got. But one of the ones that I saw was by Andy Staples, who's now with On3. And he put out 4, I think you guys used it. I think he put out 4 different statements, and actually the dates were on the statements. And all of them were pretty much the same thing over a year's time. One of the things I want to, how much did you guys get into UConn last week?
A little bit. We got a considerable about UConn. And look, UConn.
Because I want to try to clear up the air on UConn, if I can.
Yeah, UConn is... I mean, and it's still a secret. I mean, you talk about Max Olson about it. That's Brett Yormark's. That's the one that he wants, because he can see the future potential in it for not only basketball, which is his favorite sport, but he thinks long-term growth for the whole conference because of its proximity to New York City and all of that. But I do think that he's smart enough to know that, like, it's not now that you're going to get UConn, or you can maybe put the Pac-12 teams in a bit of a more thing. It's like, look, we'll take UConn over you if you guys are going to drag your feet.
All right, here's what, and you write, I read Max's article. This is Yormark's pet snake. And it's his puppy. Here is the issue with UConn. I think if Brett Yormark could make the decision today, what he has to remind himself of, no matter how much of a rock star or how he's vaulted up the ladder out of nowhere, because I never heard of him until he was introduced. But then again, I really had never heard of Matt Rule until the name came down. He was the next Baylor coach, other than I'd seen a couple of games with Temple. So here's the deal with Brett Yormark and UConn. Yes, that's kind of like his pet. Right now, which commissioner, even Sankey, who's, Sankey and Petiti have the most clout because of the conferences they run, correct? Mm-hmm. Which commissioner is the fastest rising, who right now is kind of become that not one-hit wonder as a band or singer, but where is he when it comes to college football? Yormark, where is he? How would you describe him?
I would describe him as a popular up-and-comer, but Greg Sankey and, of course, now everybody's new except for Sankey, really.
Right.
Greg Sankey's, he's the Stones, the Beatles. He's the headliner.
Yeah, he will not ever lead for some. He will never be the band that plays before another band.
No, he would have to be very old without all his original members. And that person would have to be very big.
And his voice is not as good. Yeah.
That would be it. No, he's the Beatles. Like, Sankey's that. I would put him right now, and I think Tony Petiti automatically moves into number 2 because he's Big Ten.
Yep.
And he doesn't really have to work that hard to make that conference.
Phillips has snakes on the skins on the wall.
Yeah, but Phillips has got He's got tension.
Yes.
That he's going to have to deal with for 10 years, probably, maybe more, in that league. Yormark is the one who I would put him right now as an easy number 3.
So why would why would then Brett Yormark, if in fact UConn is his pet, and that's his baby, and I think there are other larger fish to fry based on what happens within the Pac-12. But why would Yormark, how much equity has he built up, Paul, in the last 1 year?
I mean,
like, he was, some people had heard of him. I'd never heard of him. That's probably more on me than him. But how much equity has he built up from day one, even before he took over the job for Bowlesby?
Tons.
Like, immense.
He's got plenty of savings in the bank.
He probably doesn't have to buy a drink at any of the Big 12 cities or towns, right? On campus or not.
Yeah.
So, if in fact UConn is something that intrigues him, and it obviously does, what if it doesn't intrigue what are the 12 members going forward?
Then it doesn't matter if it really intrigues him or not. It really doesn't, because they're the ones who make the decision. And if you want to know how this works, I'll point you to the Pac-12 and George Kliavkoff.
Right.
I'm sure there's certain things that he could have done over this time, but knowing that it would not have gotten past, you don't have to walk through just one door. You have to walk through. He had to walk through 10 at a time. Mm-hmm. Now he has to walk through 9. Brett Yormark has to walk through now 13 doors, although maybe Colorado doesn't get to say anything yet because they're not in it, but he's got to walk through 12 doors, and, if enough of them say,
okay, so I don't know exactly what the number is, but let's say if there's 12 because of the incoming 4, not including Texas and OU or Colorado. I don't know if it's a 75% pie. Does he have 8 votes? Maybe he does. But what happens if Yormark wants UConn, wants to push that because he feels pretty good about where things are and he's got all this momentum, and then what happens if he pushes it? Let's say, Paul, they vote for UConn and it doesn't pass. How soon after that would that leak out, and how much would that undercut what Yormark has built up with equity?
Yeah, he's got
to. To me, that's the only danger. That to me is the danger.
He's got to be kind of how the federal government prosecutes cases. Like, they're not going to lose, or if they are going to lose, it's going to be close. Like, it's going to be one of those things that, we decided on this plea agreement because we didn't have everything, so we got him on the lesser charge. You kind of, if you're Brett Yormark, if you're going to lose, it better be close, or it better be, you've got to just do that when you know you're going to win it, which is why he was able to do it with Colorado. I mean, and again, there could have been A year ago, if he had just kicked out when USC and UCLA left, like, hey, what do you guys think about Colorado? There might have been some old guard that were like, nope, not at all. We're glad they're gone. Didn't help us anyway. Dirty hippies, like that could have been the sentiment at Colorado, and you have to work on that. So the UConn idea is very new, so he's got to knead that dough a little bit before he puts it in the oven.
And so when last week I responded, when I don't even remember where I was because I was in so many different places in a short amount of time, but somebody asked me about UConn, so I responded to the one on Twitter who kind of thought we were being a little bit anti-Northeast. No, we're not. That we were anti-UConn. Some are. I know Craig's not real thrilled with them. I'm not so sure about them. It won't keep me up at night. Paul, I think you're kind of in the same boat.
I'm apoplectic about it. Yeah.
Is there something better first? That's nothing against UConn, their men's basketball team, with what they have. But to me, why rush it? There's no need. You're going to have 14 teams. You think they're going to play next year with 13?
No.
Okay, so someone's going to fill that seat, maybe 3 to get to 16, I don't know. So why fill a seat that might have 1 or even 5 people interested in filling that 1 or the second and third seat? So that's, I think, the kind of the back and forth that Yormark has to deal with. But if he takes it to vote, if he gets antsy or he gets a little impatient, he takes it to vote, he better know who the votes are, because if, in fact, it doesn't pass, then he will be, well, known for he didn't have all his ducks in a row, and I don't think that's his style. I would think he would have to know the vote. It's like when they go, I guess, at Congress or whatever, political figure, they kind of know. That doesn't mean you're going to lose. You won't lose a vote. But you have to kind of know how many Democrats are on the other side of the aisle going to join what you vote to try to pass a bill.
Yeah, which is why we don't see much stuff get to the floor anymore, because they like to know. And if it does and it's going to lose, it's mostly a stunt, so that you can be like, look who did this. See, American people, they hate you. Whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, you have to know. You have to know what's going to happen. And I think, and just seeing everything he's done, he's really good about planting seeds. And so I don't think he's going to rush this. I don't think he's going to say like, hey, but I think UConn will always be out there. And I think you do have to prepare for the reality that, you might say 2 more Pac-12 schools want to join, but Utah and BYU just doesn't want to be in with BYU, and they're going to wait it out and figure out what they're going to do later on. And Oregon and Washington are like, look, guys, I know you're the better option, but we're going to sign a short grant of rights with the Pac-12. We'll add some teams. We'll see where we are in a couple years and just hopefully win some playoff games and get some juice, because it just doesn't work for us. And so you might have gotten Arizona State out of that, but now you've got Arizona State, and I guess who would be leaving out? Arizona State and Arizona State, they want to come together. Then you've got 15 teams.
Yep.
So you've got to okay, well, now we got to go to 16. Well, then the UConn, you just call them up and go, okay, here we go.
There's no rush.
Yeah, there's no rush.
To me, you right now are the girl of the dance that everybody wants to dance with.
Who is?
I mean, I get SEC Big Ten. Don't get me wrong.
And who is going after UConn? The only conference, honestly, that it would make sense for me outside of the Big 12 would be the ACC, but I don't think that UConn moves the needle enough for them to improve their television deal, so it's just...
You wonder if Brett Yormark's basketball background,
well, I mean,
his
that's
history,
absolutely
might also be the one. Hey, listen, UConn and the Big 12 and men's basketball is great. Everything else, with all due respect, can you kind of show us a little bit more evidence? Adam Vulture, Super Chat, Yormark was hired to build... Don't backtrack into an old Big 12 now. There are other conferences out there. Thank you, Adam. We appreciate the Super Chat. All right, when we come back, again, we were hoping to have Matt McChesney, former Colorado defensive lineman, but he has to push it back to tomorrow because of something that's come up. We will get into that. Eric Morris, head coach at North Texas. You want to keep going here, then break before Eric Morris, because we can get to more if you want to.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and keep going.
All right?
Yeah.
Garrett, Bud Elliott. Tweet. This is a few days ago. In fact, I think it was maybe on Friday. What he's saying is probably correct. And of course, some people get their hair on the back of their neck why didn't you include this and this? And Paul's kind of got a list. We'll go over that in a second. But this was his initial part. And look, we're going to do the reaction from David Hale. We've had him on the show. But initially, there are 18 teams whose top attainable goal is to win a national title. They act like it. They spend like it. They fundraise off it. Know at their ceiling is doable. And most have actually done it in the last 30 years. The new Big 12 has 0 of those 18. The ACC has 3. Now, there's nothing he said there that based on national championships or whatever is not correct. And it's also his opinion because he sees how the Big 12's kind of shooting up the charts. Now, here's a response from David Hale. We've had David on. He covers the ACC. It's been pretty upfront that I think the ACC is in a near impossible situation long term. But it's interesting that there's not a brand in the Big 12 that would move the needle on the ACC's TV deal, yet the vibes, as the kids say, are so much better basically right now in the Big 12 than the ACC.
All right, so here's where Bud's paths diverge in the woods. He is not wrong. I mean, who in the Big 12 spends like any of these teams historically?
All right.
And we have to, like, this is what, so let's go. So
doesn't mean they won't. Doesn't mean they have it at times,
but
consistently year in and year out.
The 3 ACC teams are FSU, Miami, and Clemson.
All right, I'm going to write these down too. Okay. All right.
Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State.
Right.
Oklahoma, Texas, Notre Dame.
All right.
USC, Georgia, Oregon, and Bama.
Okay.
Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, LSU, A&M, Wisconsin, and Washington. Now, those 3 at the bottom have not been in the discussion for a national title.
That's 20 teams.
But those are the ones he kind of tweeted out or responded to it. So there might be a couple you can take out of there, but somebody made a list and he said yes to this, and he said Washington or Wisconsin and Washington were kind of on the fringe.
By the way, Mr. Guy goes, and this was a response. TCU was just in the national championship game. They're not saying they weren't.
No.
What they're saying is the year in and year out. That doesn't mean they can't be in the future, but year in and year out, the last 30 years, this is what they've done, even though, like, for example, guess who's not on that list that probably spends a bucket load of money that's won, but not recently? Nebraska.
So, yeah, you could put Nebraska probably on that list.
Maybe.
And they're spending a bucket load of money right now, for sure, to try to get back into it. But I think that you have to – this is pre-12-team playoff and now post-12-team playoff. Yeah, of course the other teams don't sweat the financials because they know that you have to – you have to absolutely hit on all cylinders to make that national championship thing work. And like TCU did last year. It was the absolute perfect combination of preparation, hard work, skill, and luck.
Right.
Because they did have to get lucky. Some things had to happen around them.
Right.
That led them there. Well, now with the 12-team playoff, the luck factor widens a little bit. You don't have to be, horseshoe up your backside lucky to get in if you're not Georgia or Auburn or someone like that.
Although... Couldn't Georgia have lost to Ohio State?
Yeah, exactly. But again,
they had one,
the luck factor is a little bit bigger. So you do have to look at it in that way, and that the 12-team playoff, it will be different. And part of the reason those teams, the rest of the teams didn't spend is that if you sit down in this athletic department and go, man, we had a really good football team last year. If 2 things bounce our way, what if we really start putting resources to this? And okay, give me the P&Ls. Give me these on Georgia. And you hand, Oregon State the Georgia P&Ls, and they go, well, we don't know how to get this money.
We would love to do that, and we would like for it to be us, but yeah,
we can't get there because we're going to spend this money to get into what was either 2 spots or 4 spots. Now, if you can say we're going to spend this money to get into, I'm just going to say reasonably the top 15, and they're going to take 12, but I think that the top 15 or 16 every year are going to have a reasonable argument.
Right.
And then you'll have, a couple teams that, for years will be like, well, didn't 2029, we should have gotten in. That was bull crap.
Yep.
But other than that, you don't have as many people that have that big of an argument anymore. So,
all right, was Miami came out of the ashes in the early 80s when Snellenberger and the Hurricanes won and set up an incredible run that was like they were the talk of college football no matter what, whoever else was really, really good. So is there a Miami in the current group? Now, I saw somebody bring up, well, what about TCU? the 18 teams or 20 teams that they're discussing are the ones who over the last 3 decades have year in and year out, doesn't mean they haven't had like bumps in the road, the commitment financially with facilities, commitment to coaching, commitment to the program, and donor money for everything. And oh, by the way, they've also won for the most part. Yes, Tennessee went through a tough time. There have been a few of them. But who is now, and this is what I wanted to get to, who is now going to come out of the pack of not that 18 or 20, who can come out of the pack not for 1 year, but can then become what Miami was, if at all, because that would be hard to do in the next 10 or 15 years.
Well, I mean, and I think that remains to be seen. But here's how I would break it down. There are places on Saturdays, and Lincoln, Nebraska is one of them, that when the game ends at 6 o'clock, if Nebraska is on the losing end of that, even after all this time, try to go out and have fun in Lincoln, Nebraska that night.
Yep.
Now, there are other
and they haven't
places.
had fun for
and
a long
there are
time.
other places in Morgantown, West Virginia. This is one of the reasons I really want to go visit you, that you are going to have fun and you're going to be bummed about the loss, but you are not going to let it like fester until Sunday afternoon sometimes,
right,
when you realize that it's over. There are those 18 places. Try and go out on Saturday night as a college student. Like it is, I can tell you, when FSU lost to Maryland, which was the first ACC game they'd lost in 2001 and forever. And my friends and I were standing at Bullwinkle's on Tennessee Street, and there was like 8 people in the bar other than us, just like sadly drinking beer going, I mean, that was the whole night. But
you were going to drink and probably drink too much anyway had they won, but now you were drowning your sorrow.
But yeah, I've in other college towns where, heck, I was in Athens one night back in that same time. They got worked, and they just didn't have that expectation. And everybody was like, "Hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "You guys just got worked. What's going on here?" But now they're in that. They're in that group.
Yeah, so there's 18 or 20. That doesn't mean that you have to agree with him putting A&M in there. A&M has always spent as much as they possibly can, even when they weren't supposed to, when it comes to trying to have their program. They're not the only ones. They got right on the cusp. It looked like they were coming over the edge because of their recruiting. We'll see what happens if they can bounce back. So, yeah, when you put them in the list, it's not for what success they've had. It's for the commitment to money, donor money, and other money to get to a point where you win a national championship. Very rarely, and you can, if you want in the chat room or not, text line 254-339-1122. How many teams have ever come out of the last 45 or 50 years in college football that came out of the pack that's not thought of as the alphas? Brigham Young did it in the mid-'80s, right? Well, Miami came out of nowhere. Florida State eventually came out of nowhere. So it can happen. And TCU last year was, my God, even though they got blown out, they were in the damn game. So good for them. And can they follow it up? That remains to be seen. Interesting. And this is what's weird about timing. Eric Morris is next. So Brigham Young and Baylor decide a couple of years ago to renew their rivalry. Not rivalry. Renew their football series. And the first year they do it in 2021, first time they've played in forever, is when Brigham Young comes into the Big 12. Or at least invited and accepted. TCU and Colorado are going to play this year, and that's going to be a preview of 2 Big 12 schools. So that's kind of intriguing to me also. Now, when we come back, we'll hear from Eric Morris, the head coach at North Texas. They have a new football stadium named Money. And also his thoughts coming off all the media days the last 2 or 3 weeks, and his thoughts about college football. This is 365 Sports.
The Make This the Summer sales event is going on now at Allen Samuels. Get amazing deals on new Ram trucks, Jeep SUVs, Chrysler minivans, or a sporty Dodge. Shop online or visit us today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends. The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel & Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, here we go, this 3 o'clock hour. And on the chat room, I just asked if, in fact, 1, 2, or 3 teams do eventually add themselves to the Big 12. In what order would you think that will go? We're now joined by Eric Morris, former, of course, Texas Tech wide receiver, but now the head coach at North Texas, who joins us on 365 Sports with Craig Smoak. Out today, it's Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak. Eric, thanks for your time. So how about the new football stadium name and the money that goes with it, the commitment that goes with it, and how a big day that is for North Texas and Denton?
Oh, it's huge. You know, I've been practicing on how to pronounce it. Being from West Texas, my pronunciations aren't great all the time. So it's Dad Q, like a letter Q at the end. So I've been working on that. But fired up. All the stuff's going up. The signage is going up right now, and it looks fantastic. So excited to get that done. I know our athletic director has been working extremely hard on it, and it's going to be a great partnership for us moving forward. So
it's Dat Q?
Dat Q, yes, sir.
Dat Q. And for those who don't know what that means, I had this on here earlier. The Denton Area Teachers Credit Union is what that represents. Dat Q, the new name of the stadium that that you at North Texas will be playing their football games.
Coach, as you guys start this year and you have the new stadium naming rights and all the absolute, tumultuous nature of college football right now, how big is it for you guys to keep making moves as you move into a new conference, new stadium and all that, with the 12-team playoff and postseason glory now a realistic goal for teams in the AAC, in other conferences like you are?
Yeah, I think it's huge, and I think it was huge, that, starting probably 12 years ago, that this university had a vision and they wanted to continue to grow, and they saw athletics as being an avenue to get there and kind of to be that front porch of the whole entire university. So being a part of, great leadership is huge during these times. I think, President, Chancellor, building a new stadium 12 years ago, 3 years ago, we built the nicest indoor in all of Texas. We're going to upgrade our facilities right at the end of this season. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that they had the vision. They knew that change was coming. And it's one of those things you have to be proactive right now. You never know when you wake up in the morning, you read on Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called now, what the newest move in college football is. And so, this is the fastest growing university in the state of Texas. We're going to have 45,000 students. And so, you learn to never say never. And I think, if we can have success on the football field, that eventually it's going to allow us to continue to have more opportunities down the road.
Other than just you're older and more experienced, and I say older with you, you're not old at all. Why are you a better head coach now than you were at Incarnate Word?
Oh, my goodness. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. For the most part, I think that my organization skills are so much better. Not only do I know how to lead a group of young men and our players, but I also know how to lead our coaches and to be a mentor to our coaches. And so, there are so many things at Incarnate Word to where, our program wasn't under a microscope and, there was no history there. Nobody expected us to win. So, you could kind of throw some spaghetti on the wall and some of it would fall off, some of it would stick, and keep throwing spaghetti at the wall, making mistakes. And then, you take notes on this. My chief of staff came with me. He was with me at Incarnate Word. We've taken so many notes over the course of the year, and just organizing, from compliance department to our academic departments to your training departments to your weight room department. I think I have a better holistic plan on how to put it all together now.
How much do you learn from each stop along the way without knowing that you want to be a head coach again or that it's going to come, but as you step up the ladder that you can apply without, like you said, you didn't have a lot of pressure to do everything right away at an Incarnate Word?
Yeah, I think that's what the great ones do. They learn. And my grandfather told me a long time ago, you can learn just as much from a dumb person as you can a smart person, learning what not to do, right? So always paying attention. But I've been blessed to be around great mentors. I mean, if you look at the coaches I've been around as a player, as a coach, and the people I've leaned on day in, day out on really how to run an organization, the list goes on and on. I mean, you talk about, Sonny Dykes, Lincoln Riley, and Dana Holgerson were my three position coaches when I was a player. And to move on, the influence that Mike Leach had on my life. And then, to be able to go with Kevin Sumlin, Cliff Kingsbury. And then really, one of the best experiences of my coaching career so far was to go to Washington State last year. And I think that Jake Dickert really helped me, see things. It's the first time I've worked from a defensive head coach. And it allowed me to see some things in a different light and a different view. And I think that's allowed me to kind of change some things on the way we practice. And some drills need to be geared to the defense and allow them to have success, while we're installing and learning. So, yeah, I've drawn from each and every coach that I've been around.
Eric, you're now a part of the American Conference. Obviously, there's change in college football. We saw the story just last week with Colorado, eventually a part of the Big 12, and who knows what else happens with that or the Pac-12. Is it at times difficult to know who's in your conference or what conference you're in?
No, not really. I think, for the one difficult thing for me right now is just the unknowns going into the American. I think, it helps a little bit that we have some people from CUSA that are making the move with us and some familiarity there, with some teams that they played here in the past. But, when you look at Tate from last year in the American, I mean, three of the best teams that were in that conference last year have now moved on. They're moving on to the Big 12. And so, I do think, it's a little bit of an unknown going into this conference. Kind of talking to some of the guys, Jeff Traylor's been a great mentor of mine, and I've spent a lot of time talking to him throughout the course of the summer, and just to kind of get familiar with the teams that he played, how our roster stacks up against these other teams. And so I'm more anxious than anything just to kind of get out there and finally, let these guys loose and put the football down and see where the chips fall.
All right, speaking of let the ball loose or see what happens, your quarterback competition is stacked. Stone Earl, Chandler Rogers, Jace Reuter. Is this going to carry in, you think? Do you want to have a starter the week before your opening game? Is that what you'd like, or do you think it's going to take a while?
No, absolutely. We need one. My goal is to have it by our second scrimmage. That way we can kind of get into a mock game week, and that's when school starts for us. So by the time school starts, I'd like to name a starter and give him 2 full weeks to kind of, show him how we game plan, really start to game plan with them and to kind of get in a rhythm with that guy, whoever it is. This is, I've really never been in a situation like this where we have 3 guys that legitimately have a chance to win it. So, they know what's at stake. I think they all have their different strengths and weaknesses. And, luckily nowadays, during the course of the summer, you get to spend a little bit more time playing ball. Coaching ball with them. You get a little bit of meeting time. You get a little bit on the field to do some drill work with them. So I think, they're a lot further along right now than where they were this spring. And so I'm really anxious to see kind of who comes out on top of that thing.
Eric, you open with Cal, and I think it's a home game for you. And you at Washington State last year played against them, beat them, in fact. Does that experience help at all that week?
Yeah, I think so. You game plan for that defense. Here not very long ago, you saw kind of how they wanted to attack you, what worked, what didn't work. Justin Wilcox has always been really good on the defensive side of the ball. And so, the one advantage that I do think we have coming into this game is, it's going to be early September at 3 p.m. in Texas, and it's going to be hot as hell outside. And so, we're going to use that to our advantage. We're going to practice outside a little bit more in the afternoon than what we're used to in camp. And, Mike Leach would always tell me, we're soft if we want to go outside because that's not where we're going to play. And so, I'll take some of his advice, and we're going to try to get used to that Texas heat because I don't think they'll be quite used to it when they show up here in September.
You stepped into a situation where you have a lot of veteran players, and North Texas in the era of the transfer portal has been able, for the most part, nobody bats 1,000, to hold on to their guys really well. How much easier does that make it for you guys, especially early in the season with a new quarterback, surrounding him with guys who have been there and who have played?
Yeah, it's part of the reason I wanted this job so bad is I know Coach Luttrell. I thought Coach Luttrell did a fantastic job for the past 8 years. This is a team that played in a conference championship game just a year ago. And so, we lost a couple pieces to the transfer portal since we got here. Really the only position that took a big hit was the tight end position. Everything else, I'm super excited about what we're returning. You look at what we have up front on both sides of the ball. What we have at the wide receiver and running back positions as far as playmaking ability and guys that have actually done it in games. You look to the back end on defense. We have 2 corners that are extremely talented. Rich Sahad is a guy that's played a lot of ball and one of the best covered corners in this conference. And so I think really tight end and linebacker are the 2 positions that are not proven right now. And so those are things we're going to have to get them ready to play ball during the course of camp and make sure we're ready to go with those 2 positions. Everywhere else, I feel extremely confident.
Eric, thank you very much for your time. How was the haircut? You get to be my age. It doesn't take long to get a haircut.
Yeah, I'm still trying to stay young and hip. I went with a little mohawk look, and I grow up my mustache during camp. My wife is not a fan of either one of them. That's what I've been doing for a while. And so I'll get home here in a little bit, and she'll complain at me a little bit, and just it's coming. And but that's been a camp tradition of mine for a while. I'll keep it going.
All right, I do have to ask, and I should have asked you earlier, but this is the first full football season without somebody that meant a lot to you and Mike Leach. We've had other players who have been on. I think we even, back earlier in the year, asked you about Mike Leach, your thought about the impact he had on your life.
Really it's hard to put into words, and you look at, how he was able to change the college football game. I mean, his thumbprint is just everywhere, and not just in the state of Texas. I mean, you look up and it's on the West Coast, it's on the East Coast. And so, not only was he impactful for the game, but, he's the only guy that gave me an opportunity to get a scholarship coming out of high school. Forever grateful for that. And then he was able to give me my first full-time job. So a guy that I owe so much to, I owe everything to, right? And he's given me my 2 breakthrough opportunities. And so forever grateful for him. And I guarantee his legacy will continue to shine throughout college football.
Good luck, Eric. Thank you for your time. Good luck against Cal and getting to that point. We appreciate your time. Eric Morris, head football coach at North Texas, with us on 365 Sports. There are 2 or 3 different tweets that Jason Scheer from Wildcat Authority has put up. We'll get to that in the next segment in the 4 o'clock hour. We also have Softy. Yes. When I always say stick your head in the tank of gasoline, light it with a match full throttle, I think I can do that. And then there's Softy about the University of Washington and what they're looking at. Not that anything might happen with them, or they're looking, or I'm sure their ears to the ground. What is up there in Seattle? He'll join us a little bit in the next segment or two. This is 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace, where you can do a couple of different things when you go there. One, save a bunch of money. The average MRI is $1,100, and their cost is $497. It is not like buy one, get 2 free. It's not like $497 and then it's $1,500. It's $497 or less every single time when you get an MRI, and sometimes less because of insurance, at IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off 35 in Waco. Plus, on top of that, they're going to find out what is bothering you. Maybe it's something in your lower back, but it's affecting something elsewhere, like your hip or your calf or your knee or your whatever. And that can happen. An MRI will find out and diagnose and pinpoint exactly what's wrong. Whether a vertebrae is out of whack, there's something going on, a muscle, a ligament, and they'll find it and get it to you and to your doctor in the portal. And oh, by the way, maybe there's not anything going on, and it's just some arthritis or something else. They're going to find it at IdealMRI.com with Dr. Rob Maxey and his staff, IdealMRI.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. And if you can't make it to Riverbend, DoorDash is available to bring it to you. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
All right, we're back in the 4 o'clock hour. Paul, Catalina, David Smoak, 365 Sports. So Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority. I traded a couple of text messages with him, and I said, anything in particular that you have, along with talking to others? And he said, no, not really. Could be a quiet day. But this is a tweet from him. Sources indicate to Wildcat Authority the Pac-12 will hold a meeting tomorrow. Numbers will be presented, but there is pessimism within the conference. This could be George Kliavkoff's last stand in keeping the conference together. Now, let's look at this one first, and Garrett will respond to the other ones along the way. Of course there's pessimism because they've heard this story before, but at the same time, my God, something eventually has to be where you could grab it and here's a number.
Yeah, Ken O'Cal just had a great tweet about this as well, but I don't know if they had this deal in place and Colorado, and nobody had seen it, and now they've got it and Colorado's gone. There's a whole lot of things that don't add up here. And this might have been the worst case scenario, break glass in case of emergency deal.
Today? Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
That's to me what it would make it, because I don't see how you're more valuable at 9 teams than you are at 10 if you're not even talking seriously about who else you're going to bring in yet. And then, that TV deal, they keep saying media rights, media deal, grant rights, expansion. So, but you don't know, again, this deal that could have numbers in it also has to be contingent on the fact that you're not going to show this deal to whoever's interested in potentially leaving for another conference, and they're not going to go, well, deuces, because they don't like that.
Here's my question. When did Colorado decide they're going to join the conference? Was it Thursday? So you mean to tell me in 72 hours something's changed enough to have a meeting to present a number?
And, you didn't have one at Pac-12 Media Days. That's what made Colorado mad in the first place. Less than a week later, officially they're out on Thursday, right? So officially they're out, but the decision was made probably on Monday that they did it, and then comes down on the line.
If there's a number.
Yeah. So, because we found out on Tuesday that it was potentially happening. Wednesday was one meeting and after another, and then Thursday was the unanimous vote from the board. So you've got a week. And so from, let's just say, on Wednesday that it's going to happen, Thursday it becomes official. And I do think the Pac-12 was a little bit more naive in the leadership, and, well, there's still a chance they could vote a different way. No, because they thought that with UCLA. And then they did the whole, Board of Regents meeting, and
just like the Big 12 in Texas OU.
And the dean of the physics department's like, am I not going to get any money for my research? And they're like, no, you're fine. And they're like, well, what do I give it?
Yeah.
So yeah, fine, let him go.
So that's the first of Jason Scheer. Here's another one. To add to my previous tweet, There is absolutely no confidence in a deal, and nobody knows where the linear aspect is coming from. If George Kliavkoff pulled this off since Thursday, it would be a small miracle. And for his sake, and you would think for those who are left, yeah, you kind of, again, other conferences, including the Big 12, have been there. And then finally this one from Jason Scheer, indicating, sources indicate that there is very little linear aspect to the deal that will be presented tomorrow. Nobody knows where it's coming from, but there is also speculation Kliavkoff could present escalators of sorts if certain ratings numbers are hit.
But you've got a problem in that. Your only consistent ratings drivers in that league are two schools.
And they're leaving.
And,
one of them
is leaving, and then one of them is there in Oregon.
Oh, you're talking about Washington, Oregon.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about USC and Oregon.
Okay.
One of them's gone, and one of them, and Washington probably could drive some numbers. But herein lies the other thing, and I've talked about this over the time. The Pac-12 still is doing, I think the leadership still had LA in their head, as this is our market. And they do think that they have San Francisco as their market, but I would drill down on those numbers specifically for college football in San Francisco. Because the number one college football market that watches the most college football television in the country is Birmingham, Alabama.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so...
Where are they in the top 30 markets in America?
They're not.
I didn't think
exactly.
So. Yeah.
So you're going to say, yes, we have all these potential televisions in San Francisco, but it's not a college football town in spite of the fact that Stanford and Cal are right there. And if it was a college football town, you would see Stanford and Cal packed to the gills with college football fans all the time, and you don't. So you've got these two big markets, one who doesn't really care, neither of them who really care about college sports in general. And the only one that they do care about regularly is USC, and that's just because they've been the ones who've been at the very tip top of the charts, so to speak.
Right.
When USC is average, LA doesn't care as much. When just like they're very much like Miami. When the Hurricanes are average, that city doesn't care as much.
But if they're really good, and it might be something you want to be, not so much you want to go watch yourself, but you want to make sure everyone sees you or you're seen at the game.
If I can go to a USC game in LA and there's Snoop Dogg and Will Ferrell and Steven Spielberg, they're all here and excited. And I go to Miami and look, oh my God, it's Michael Irvin and Jim Kelly and all these people oh my God, J-Lo's here. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, this is going to be a blast. A-Rod, oh wow. And then Manhattan, Kansas has one celebrity anyway, so they're not going out for that. They're just going for the college football game. Same with Tuscaloosa, for all that matter. They're going for the game. So it's different culturally. So, yeah, I think it's going to translate differently when it comes to television numbers.
All right, so there is that with Jason Scheer, so watch for that. That gives us something to kind of look at. And yet again, because of the loss of Colorado, maybe there is a number. Maybe as somebody put in the chat room, it's 20. Or is it 22? Or is it 17? Or is it incentives? Or in this case, as somebody put the smiley or laughing emoji, escalators. Escalators are like commission checks. You get paid for what you not bring in as far as the sales, but what you collect from what you bring in when it comes to sales. If you bring in $100,000 in sales, but you only collect $25,000, you only get paid for the $25,000. You get paid on what you collect. And that's kind of like how escalators work, like incentives in contracts when it comes to pro sports, whether it's, the wins or home runs or batting average or certain things along the way, or even games played for that matter. When we come back, Dave Softy Mahler, he'll give us his perspective, and believe me, he will, from KJR Radio in Seattle. And this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store. Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a butcher shop and a bakery. And the butcher shop, of course, is loaded all the time when it comes to beef, pork, poultry, and also seafood. Here's what also they have, and it could be a place, let's say you're looking for something and you normally would go to the convenience store to go pick up a couple of things you need, some items that for whatever reason you forgot at the grocery store, and it's closer. Waco Custom Marketplace is kind of like a grocery store. Honestly, it is. And it also gives you that feeling of if you need just a couple of things, quickly go get it. But if you want to get there and spend the next, let's say 30, 45 minutes, and you're looking for food for the next 5 or 6 days or what you're going to put in your freezer, they can do that for you. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. For example, specials every single week, including whether it's New York strip steak or ribeyes or bone-ins or even the tomahawk chop type ribeyes, they have those too. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall joins us. She's the marketing director who knows all of the specials and also the events coming up. And thank you very much, as always, for your time. So all of these holidays are over. We've hit the meat of, literally, of the summer. And your thoughts about as you hit the month of August and into football season, Samantha?
Football season's right around the corner, so that means it's perfect time for tailgating. The best time to grab our hamburger patties is right now through the end of July. We still have our sale going on with our regular patties and our jalapeno and cheese patties. They're $12 a package, so that's 4 patties to a package. It's perfect for the time for football. Gather all your family around. That way you can grill it up.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu and how they age it as well. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak and Paul Catalina.
This is 365 Sports on a Monday afternoon, and everything in college football every week, as some have said, put your head on a swivel. And maybe, no, there's no maybe. He is as good a guest as we've ever had on the show, even back when we were in regular radio. Dave Softy Mahler, KJR Seattle, joins us. and get ready. Put on your seatbelts. Paul Catalina, David Smoak. My man, are you at NFL training camp today?
I am right now at the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, home of your 2013 Super Bowl champions. Should have been 2014 as well. Seattle Seahawks, roasting my matzo balls off on the sideline under a 84-degree Renton, Washington day on the shores of Lake Washington.
84 degrees.
84 is winter.
Come on.
It's
winter.
84
right now.
and no humidity.
God, we always didn't really like you. We just like to hear you. But thanks. All right, so obviously the story of Colorado, my God, it took forever. They finally decided to cross the line in the sand. I don't think that Washington's a part of anything that will be Big 12. I don't think they want to be. But how has that – what's the reaction been, in your opinion, in the circles of the Huskies?
Well, first of all, this whole thing has been a downward spiral ever since USC and UCLA took off, right? I mean, they've lost 3 teams and they've added none. They have an expiring media contract and they have yet to announce a new one. So it's just been take, lose. There's been no addition at all to this conference, either in the form of a media deal or a new program coming on board. So the program is slowly but surely, leaking a little bit, or the conference is leaking, if you will, a little bit. They haven't repaired anything yet. There's been no, plugs to the holes in the boat, if you will. So it's been kind of a few months of just kind of misery for the Pac-12. I saw Dan Lanning's comments today. I don't know if you guys saw that or not.
Yep.
The head coach at Oregon made a comment about losing Colorado and kind of laughed it off as, hey, they stink. What's the big deal? They haven't beaten anybody. Well, the big deal, dipstick, is that you lost the number 16 market in the country in Denver, Colorado. And everybody, I think, assumes that Colorado under Deion Sanders is going to be a bit of a shinier object than Colorado under Mel Tucker or Mike McIntyre or Carl Durrell, right? So Colorado might just be kind of coming into a little bit of relevance here with prime time, and they're walking away. So I thought Dan Lanning's comments were stupid and short-sighted and, frankly, idiotic and ignorant, to be honest with you. I mean, the guy's thinking like a football coach. I understand that because that's what he is, but he's not thinking like a businessman. And that really has been the problem with this conference, is that the leaders, namely the president's guys, have not thought like business people. And that's why the conference is where they're at right now.
So what do you gauge as the temperature around Washington for how they feel about the conference, short-term and long-term, and what they have to wait for when it comes to other options?
I think UW is like Oregon. They're just waiting to see if there's going to be an invite down the road from the Big Ten. I don't think they want to be a part of the Big 12, and here's why. It's got nothing to do with the quality of the programs in the Big 12. I mean, first of all, you guys know this as well as I. If they bring on Arizona, as they're rumored to be doing, this basketball conference might be second to none in the country, right? I mean, think about Kansas and Baylor and Texas Tech, who has been to the Final Four recently, as you guys know, under Chris Beard. Now you're going to bring on a storied program like Arizona. Kansas State has had their moment in the sun as well as a basketball program under Bob Huggins and beyond. So they may be kind of unmatched when it comes to basketball if they bring on Arizona. The problem for fans in Seattle, I think, is the towns and the airports are so hard to get to, and they're smaller. They're not exactly big-time hubs when it comes to airlines and hotels and things like that. I think that kind of puts a bit of a burden sometimes on fans that come from markets like Seattle and Los Angeles. So I think when it comes to the Big 12, okay, if the Pac-12 falls apart and the Big 12 is the only option, then great, sign us up. But in a perfect world, I think it's either A, stay in a new-look Pac-12 with maybe a San Diego State or an SMU or maybe a Colorado State, or just potentially play with 9 teams every season. Maybe you add one more program, or wait for an invite from the Big Ten at a reduced revenue share, meaning the Big Ten would go to UW and Oregon and say something like, hey, you guys don't have a lot of options. You've only got 8 teams left in your conference. Your conference is falling apart from the inside out. You want to stay there, or do you want to come to our conference for a 75% share? So I think that's what UW would prefer, but what they would prefer is irrelevant until they get the invitation.
Softy, am I right or wrong that a lot of presidents and ADs have spoken, but I haven't really heard much out of Washington? Is that just because they were really not so sure how this thing would end?
No, Anna Maricause, who's the president at UW, I mean, Dave, she's preoccupied with doing different things like, curing viruses and stopping hunger and poverty and homelessness and things like that, right? Things that actually matter, I guess, as opposed to football. She's not really a big sports person, if you will. I don't know how else to say that, but it's not really kind of her forte. When you look at, a guy like Michael Schill, who's now at Northwestern, he was the president at Oregon. He was more of a sports guy. Arizona State's president. I think even USC and UCLA, kind of had more invested personally in that arena than Anna Maricause does. Jen Cohen kind of tends to speak for the school when it comes to athletics. And, that's kind of part of the issue is that they have this executive committee of the Pac-12, and the executive committee is basically made up of all 12 of the presidents. And some of them are not real sports people. And I don't say that to be insulting. I say that just to paint the picture of reality, because a lot of these people are concerned with bigger things than football. They are looking at, different issues around education and, solving the world's problems and, all kinds of different things like that. So they're not really living and breathing football and basketball the way the ADs are. So I've thought for a long time that the ADs, at least a few of them, should be on the executive committee to kind of add a little bit of a dose of reality to the whole conversation. And now you're kind of seeing what happens when things like that get ignored. The conference falls apart.
Softy, do you think that, privately, I don't know, probably maybe publicly they've said this too, but that Washington has to look at themselves as, look, they have a sterling resume when it comes to athletics. That they've contended for national championships in the past. And, I know it's not been recent in many people's regard, but more recently than places like Minnesota or something like that. And then they look at themselves and find themselves in this spot with no answer.
Well, look, here's the thing about UW. They were in the Final Four 7 years ago. Chris Peterson had them in 3 straight New Year's Six games, obviously, in the Peach Bowl, the Fiesta Bowl, and then the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. Kalen DeBoer had them at 11-2 a year ago. So there is an expectation for Washington that they're going to be a contender for something bigger than just a bowl game every single year. That's the tradition, and that's the history of Washington's program. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of on the outside looking in right now and kind of waiting for everybody else to kind of dictate to them what their paths are. If they could choose tonight, I think they'd be in the Big Ten tomorrow. But they're waiting for the invitation. There's always that kind of concern that USC and UCLA do not want UW and Oregon in the Big Ten because they want to have a monopoly on the West Coast. I mean, let's face it, guys. For now, if you want to play big-time football and you don't consider the Pac-12 or Pac-10, what's left of it, to be a big-time conference, you want to play big-time college football starting in 2024, and you want to stay on the West Coast, you really only have one option, and that's USC. You want to play big-time college basketball, you really only have one option, and that's UCLA. So I don't blame those schools for wanting to have a monopoly on the entire thing and not wanting UW and Oregon to be a part of what's happening in the Big Ten. But at some point, they may have no choice because, let's face it, guys, if you're UCLA and USC, your closest road trip is Nebraska, and that's 1,500 miles away from L.A. So they may have to get to a point where they form a little bit of a subdivision that includes potentially 2 or 3 other teams on the West Coast. Because it doesn't really hurt the football team. It hurts the Olympic sports, right? Because the football team will fly private. Like Chip Kelly told us at Media Day last week in Vegas, they take a charter bus, they pull up to the tarmac, they jump on the plane. Each player has a row to themselves, for crying out loud. If you're a softball player or a baseball player or volleyball or swimming or whatever, and you're flying coach in commercial airplanes, you're flying, if you're in LA, you're going, sometimes 3,000 miles away to play Rutgers. Columbus, Ohio, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Lincoln, Nebraska, Penn State, Maryland, places like that. These are not easy trips unless you're flying and traveling in comfort the way the football team is.
If you don't mind, Softy, one more, and I know you have your show going up, and Paul might have a
I'm all
follow-up.
good, man.
Now, You hear about perception sometimes if you're not in the bubble, so to speak, that Pac-12 bubble, but you hear, and Paul, you had your top 5 last week about what went wrong, do you sense that the conference is full of itself at times too much, or is it just part of a part of the Pac-12 conference?
No, I think that there's absolutely certain member institutions and certain presidents that are a tad arrogant, and I think that's what we just talked about, that you're not dealing with 12 conference presidents that are big-time uber-duper mega sports fans and live and breathe football. Like, for example, what happened in the SEC during COVID, that would never happen here, ever. I mean, look, we can sit here and debate the seriousness of COVID and vaccines and all that crap. I don't really want to get into that conversation, but if you guys want to have that conversation when I hang up, that's your prerogative. I mean, but they were literally willing to, according to some people, die to play college football, right? Like, I remember when the Big Ten fought through COVID, and Christine Brennan from USA Today wrote that this was the darkest day in the history of Big Ten football. Well, nobody died, as far as I know. There were no serious illnesses that led to people having long-term problems because of COVID, not that I know of so far. But that attitude that she had that day when she wrote that story is the attitude that a lot of people in this conference have, that they're a little bit dramatic. They tend to kind of take the conservative road when it comes to things like that. And I think it has been arrogant. There's no question about that. There was a point in time where they could expand to Texas and Oklahoma, and they flubbed their nose at him, maybe because of academics, things like that. So what do you want? You want to turn into the Ivy League of the West, or do you want to have multiple national champion programs in your conference in any given year? Because in some ways you can't have both, right? Not everybody can be Stanford. And oh, by the way, Stanford's football team is horrible right now. They've won 6 games in 2 years, and nobody even gives a damn down there about college football in the Bay Area. So I think there absolutely is some arrogance that's hurt this conference over the years, for sure.
I just wish one time you would actually not tell us exactly how you feel, just so we can know what it's like, man. We love you.
You know what's funny about that Christine Brennan story? I'm sorry to ramble on here, but Rick Neuheisel does a show with us every week, and he made a great point. He said Christine Brennan wrote that article about the Big Ten, saying it was the darkest day in Big Ten history when they decided to play football during COVID. And Rick's point was, did anybody not remember Jerry Sandusky, who literally was raping kids in locker rooms at Penn State? And you're calling this the darkest day in the history of the program because there's a new virus that nobody's ever heard of before, and because they're not panicking about it the way other people are, you want to bring them down and just, act like an alarmist. So I don't know, man. Look, I mean, people have a right to act any way they want to, okay? But the SEC was literally willing to die to play college football during COVID. You saw they put 50,000 fans a game. You guys had fans in your stadiums too, in Texas and all over Oklahoma. So, the phrase, it just means more in places like where you live in the SEC. There's a reason why they say that, because it just means more. And I think in a lot of ways, it just means less on the West Coast.
Great stuff, Zofty. Appreciate you, buddy. Enjoy the beautiful weather. And hopefully at some point we'll have more finality on whatever the Pac-12 does moving forward. And in fact, speaking of that, Jason Scheer, we put all the tweets up on the screen. He's going to come on with us because there's a couple of other. He thinks that really tomorrow it appears as if there might be some sort of a deal presented. We've heard that before. Jason will update us on exactly what that means today just after 5 o'clock. Is there anyone you want what's the highest octane coffee?
Like that was like a triple shot
espresso?
Of espresso. Yeah, just one of those things. That was ridiculous. But he brings up something, and Smoak, I think you've probably encountered this like I have in our travels, but especially during the academic year. But I've certainly had it in the summertime too, when teams are like flying to tournaments or like I was in the summer coming back from Cowboys camp on a flight from LA to Dallas that was only going to be a connection for the Rhode Island women's basketball team, because they had been like in Hawaii at like their, one of their things. So they had flown Southwest from Hawaii, which to LA is 5 hours. Then they flew 3 hours to Dallas on Southwest. Then I got off the plane. They got off the plane. They went to another gate, and they flew, I don't know how many stops they had
to Rhode Island?
To Rhode Island, which I've flown out of Providence on Southwest before, and it's fine. But I didn't fly direct to Dallas, and that's a Southwest hub. I had to go through Baltimore. So there's a chance that they had to go from Dallas to just say Baltimore and then to Providence
or
again.
Philly to
because I was sitting next to the manager, and I was like, "Oh, hey, where are you guys coming from?" And she's like, "Oh, we were in Maui at this. You get." Every other year you get to take a trip, and they got to go to this camp in Maui. So the team was there. You see the coach, and that's Rhode Island. I know that know that it made it, but like a Southwest flight station to station, like they were doing, that's miserable. And she even said, she's like, I cannot wait to get to Dallas because we have a 2-hour layover, and I can go hide from all these people.
You know what I experienced, and I think I shared this with you guys when I was on my way. First time ever. Has anyone ever been on a flight that was diverted because of a medical emergency? That happened to me Thursday morning. It really set us back as far as time to get to Orlando by 75 minutes, but it seemed like hours. And I'm telling you, we could say whatever we want about the staff, the attendance, flights, delays, everything that you see now. And I've had a bunch of them in a row, including that one. But the flight crew on this Southwest Airlines on the way to Orlando on Thursday morning, they were spectacular. Lady put headsets on, had them plugged into one of the compartments. It was interesting, and luckily the woman who was involved and her family was able to land and then get off the plane, and then we went on our merry way. About an hour and a half difference of where we were. When we come back. 4:35, Jared Sandler covers. He's one of the voices of the Rangers. What a week it's been in baseball. I have all these trades, I'm kind of like maybe in the minority. You don't protect prospects because prospects are, that means they haven't done it yet. But, man, there's a few you probably want to protect. And then you think about Max Scherzer, is he a Hall of Famer?
He's going to be close.
All right, because, it's give or take, and he hasn't been all that good, but he's been a part of a World Series or two, and you wonder if getting a spark inside of his baseball soul and right arm, based on being a part of a contender rather than a team that's languishing under 500. But the biggest part that scares me about them, they're not playing well, and it's not just the pitching. San Diego owns them. They haven't beaten San Diego in like 5 years.
It hurts when your best player is out.
Yeah, Seager.
Yeah,
he's the kickstart, the catalyst for everything that they do. So they've acquired a bunch of talent, a lot of pitching, maybe even more between now and the trade deadline tomorrow. But we'll hear from Jared Sandler on that when we possibly can. Hope you enjoyed the segment. By the way, the Matt McChesney segment that we were going to have earlier today, the former Colorado defensive lineman, we just traded a couple of emails, and we're going to try to see if we can lock him in, if we can, for sometime tomorrow, along with much more here on 365 Sports. Back in a moment.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Well, I mentioned a lot of what the Rangers have done, the Angels have done. Nobody's done because the trade deadline's not until tomorrow. Jared Sandler, one of the voices of Texas Rangers baseball, with us.
And now a Big Ten alum in next year.
Oh, that's right. A Big Ten alum, being a USC guy, joins us. Jared, I'm always a little skeptical. I'm like one of those, I like to protect prospects, but I always had somebody tell me a long time ago when I was at Rangers camp, prospects means you haven't done it. They have some people, collateral, pitching, whatever. Before we discuss whatever else they might do, did they win the weekend or what?
Well, I thought they had a great weekend. Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconceptions with trades is that you got to win and they got to lose. You know, they're great deals, and it's usually actually better for you long term and future negotiations if everyone wins. You know, especially if it's a National League team that really isn't of great relevance. So I think if you're the Mets, you know, you're taking a big risk banking on one guy, but you know, a lot of people really like Luis Angel Acuna, and you know, it could be a nice return for them. But for the Rangers, with Max Scherzer, you not only have a guy who has been there and done that, someone who's going to help you not just on days he starts, but days he doesn't. He pitched in the postseason. Is he as good as he was at his peak? No. But he's still a really good pitcher, and you have him for next year as well, which I think is important to consider when going into next year. You're not going to have Martin Perez. Andrew Heaney's got an option involved this offseason. You've got Jacob deGrom, who's hurt, and frankly, right now, you're kind of in a little bit of limbo with Nathan Eovaldi and understanding what his health situation is. So I think it's a really good move. I think both moves were good moves. Tommy Sajesi is a guy that he's beloved within the organization. But, you know, I don't know that there's, you know, an all-star type upside. Could be wrong. Tekoa Roby's got health concerns to go along with, you know, his strong potential. And the last thing I'd say on this, Smokey, you know, I remember in the mid-2010s when the Rangers farm system was a little depleted, people said, well, that's what happens when you win. And I hated that. That's not true. because whether you win or whether you don't win, you have the draft every year. You have the opportunity internationally to make additions every single year, and you have the opportunity internally to develop your own guys. And so the great thing about that is, the control is within each organization to maintain a strong farm system so that you're in a position to make moves like this, but not be hamstrung by them. And the Rangers still have a ton of depth in their farm system, and they're going to have plenty of opportunities in subsequent years to maintain that or even grow that.
When you look at if Aldi comes back, which I know, forearm tightness is always something that, will get a little pit in your stomach. But if Aldi comes back, and I know everybody expects Corey Seager to come back when he can swing the bat without any problems and continue his great season. So you look at the playoff roster, even if they don't add anything right now, outside of a steady back end of the bullpen, they're pretty loaded for bear, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say that. Okay, so yes, I mean they definitely need to improve the bullpen. I know that your hypothetical is, let's just say no one else gets added, and you're kind of banking on just growth or progression from guys in the organization. Maybe a guy like Matt Bush, who the Rangers brought back a month ago, is pitching well in Double-A. Maybe they can catch lightning in a bottle with him for a couple months. But I think that it would be really tough going into the postseason without adding at least another reliable reliever. With that said, I think what they'd be missing is maybe that super stud at the top of the rotation. Now, Nathan Eovaldi at times was that guy, and Max Scherzer, we know, can be that guy, but it would be unfair to look at what he's done this year and say he absolutely is that guy right now. But what they would have is 3 and maybe even 4 really strong starters who you feel good about giving you a chance in any given game, be it a September game with a lot on the line or a postseason game. So it is a really good roster. The American League is wide open. There is not a team like the Atlanta Braves in the American League. And by that, I mean a team that right now appears to be just head and shoulders better than everyone else, which the Braves are in the National League. The Orioles, if they had Justin Verlander, would become incredibly scary. But right now, from where I sit, the American League's wide open. All these teams have flaws. Sometimes around this time, we focus so much on the team we follow or the team we care about and their flaws, because that's what the conversation is. Hey, we need this, we need that, we need this because of this deficiency and that deficiency. But the Rays have plenty of flaws. The Astros have plenty of flaws. The Orioles, as they're currently constructed, have a number of flaws. So all these teams have flaws, and the American League is for sure wide open.
All right, I'm going to ask a question that probably a general manager would roll his damn eyes. But you have this team that's had this good run, but you could tell the injuries have added up, Seager out, and then some of the things with pitching, and it's almost as if they're starting to slip off the boat. Is there any concern whatsoever about the chemistry of this team, or are there so many nagging injuries now that that's not even an issue when you almost revamp everything?
Yeah, are you talking about how adding these guys will impact the chemistry?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. So I'll be honest. I don't know a ton about Chris Stratton as a clubhouse guy. I've heard good things about Jordan Montgomery, but I can't say that. I've had years and years of conversations about him in the clubhouse. But with Max Scherzer, I mean, there are some fascinating articles and podcasts and stuff just telling stories about this guy in the clubhouse and how on days he starts, he is maniacal, he is intense, he is almost scary. And he goes out there and, he competes at a level that just fires you up. But then in the 4 days in between, how great of a teammate he is and how, he contributes in a big way. That's what I meant earlier when I said, he's going to contribute every 5 days, but also the 4 days in between. So I don't think so. I think this is a clubhouse that's in a really good place. And I think that when you have a strong foundation in the clubhouse, it makes adding guys a lot easier. When you're on shaky ground with chemistry and, moving together in one direction, you add guys, especially guys who are veterans who kind of have their way of doing things. That might not be received well, but I think this clubhouse is 180 degrees different from where it was last year. And I think a lot of that has to do with Bruce Bochy setting a tone and creating an environment that has allowed his players to succeed in terms of creating that sort of chemistry.
How did they turn from a team that had several holes in the lineup last year? outside of, obviously, but this is a team that has, when they're at full strength, which I know they're not right now, but 0 holes in their lineup.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's a great question. Let's start with their 2 big dogs from last offseason. Marcus Semien got off to a horrendously slow start last year, and Corey Seager, similar, and probably, bad luck with the shift. And even though he's hitting the ball a million miles an hour, and I don't know how many base hits the shift would have taken away, he lost a lot of that last year. Those 2 guys have turned things around. You get another year of development from Jonah Heim and the steps he's continued to make offensively. Nathaniel Lowe is really good. It's funny, Nathaniel Lowe, when all the other guys were starting in the All-Star game, I think there was this perception that Nathaniel Lowe was having a bad year. And, he definitely was a step behind those other guys. But since then, he's been outstanding. And you look at his numbers this year compared to last year, it's somewhat comparable. And so, he's been steady. I think the key, though, is the production the Rangers got from their 3 young guys, really the beginning of the year. And they've tabled off a little bit, but Ezekiel Duran, Josh Young, and Leody Taveras, because I don't think any of us had any idea what to expect from those 3 this year. You can sit here and say, hey, I knew Josh Young was going to be a star, and maybe you did, but there's no way in hell you knew that Josh Young was going to be this good this year in his first full year as a big leaguer. Same with Ezekiel Duran. And then with Leody Taveras, I don't know how many people were campaigning for him as a big time player, but he's grown in ways that I think the Rangers had envisioned but hadn't really seen in recent years. So the 3 young guys, I think, to me, are the difference makers in giving this lineup the depth that it has 1 through 9. And then, of course, you can't forget about Travis Jankowski and what he's done when he's been at the bottom of the order, not necessarily as an everyday player from day one, but gosh, I mean, he's been getting a lot of opportunities, and it's not flashy. He's not, no one's going to mistake him for an all-star, but a guy that's hitting over 300, who's getting on base more than 40% of the time with speed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like little things like that help complete a lineup and make a lineup dangerous.
All right, Jared, last thing. This ownership, my God, have they gone head first? Ray Davis, what Chris Young's able to do. How much money do they have? And I know the Mets are sending $35 million or whatever, and Scherzer dropped the opt-out, but they are spending a bunch of money. The Rangers in the past, when they had those teams that probably should have won a series or 2, they spent money, but this seems to be at a different level.
Yeah, and there's a human element here, right? I don't know. There are, I think, narratives that are spun about owners, some fair, some unfair. And we're in a market here in DFW where the 3 other owners are pretty outspoken.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Jones, Mark Cuban, and Tom Ghilardi. And I know some people might, who's Tom Ghilardi? But, if you do follow hockey, he's a pretty outspoken owner. Ray Davis is on the exact other end of the spectrum. So when people take shots at him, he doesn't feel the need to go out publicly and defend himself. So there are 2 narratives that have been spun about Ray Davis and this ownership group in recent years. One, they don't care about winning. I don't know Mr. Davis incredibly well, but I can tell you from the people who do, he absolutely does care about winning. And I think the money he spent shows that. And he's not getting any younger. And I think it would mean a lot to him to win a World Series in his lifetime. And, I don't know, he's in his 80s. As far as I know, health is not an issue other than the fact he's a little older, and maybe there's a little motivation there. But the other thing I'd say is really more a commentary against one of the biggest problems in baseball. The idea that the Rangers wouldn't spend money was not because they had a cheap ownership group. It was because that, during the last few years prior to Ray Davis starting to write checks, the Rangers as a real rebuilding team were incentivized to not spend money. They were incentivized to be bad, to save money for when they were ready to be good again. And that's really tough on a fan base. But if you want to win and you want what's best for your team, a lot of times that is what's best. It doesn't mean you have to strip it bare. You don't have to be the A's. You don't have to be the Tampa Bay Rays and be incredibly frugal. But winning and being in the middle isn't nearly as beneficial as stinking. Tanking, however you want to characterize it. And so spending money was not advantageous. It was not a prudent strategy. and kind of having one foot in and one foot out. And now that they got past that point and they are in a competitive window, I think this ownership group is showing not only a commitment to winning, but a commitment to winning in ways that allow this major market to compete financially like a major market.
Jared, you're out of the wilderness covering a winning team now as a broadcaster, and as a USC and alum and fan, you're out of the wilderness on that. Like, what's it like having the reigning Heisman Trophy winner and Lincoln Riley and a new conference to look forward to and potentially winning your old one on the way out the door?
Well, I look forward to all the conspiracy theories throughout the season about some shady penalties called against the departing Pac-12 teams, because I'm sure that that will happen. I love it. I love USC. I bleed Cardinal and gold. I also know that I'm setting myself up for disappointment because that's always what happens. And it is so tough. The history of returning Heisman Trophy winners in that follow-up year is not necessarily one that is wrought with examples of guys just exceeding expectations. So to me, though, fellas, if you know me, then you would know that I'm not a USC homer. But if all you've ever heard me say is this following comment, you think I would be. I'm not big like every USC guy's the greatest ever. I thought Cody Kessler sucked, Matt Barkley sucked. I thought all these guys were awful. Caleb Williams was the best college football quarterback I think I've ever seen in terms of pro prospects, not in terms of just what he's done within the college game. Not it's a separate conversation. Guys like Tebow and whatnot, but as far as like what he can do and how that you envision that translating at the NFL level, I mean the Cardinals would be wise to not win a game this year if they want to move on from Kyler Murray or any of these other teams. Caleb Williams is special, but I don't know. USC always leaves me wanting a little bit more, and if the reality is anything short of a college football playoff appearance for them this year is going to be a big disappointment, and it's really tough to make the college football playoff right now. So hopefully they win a game November 11th in Eugene against Oregon. That's going to be a really tough one, and that might be the swing game for them this season. Not that I have that date memorized or anything.
No, that just pulled it out of your, what?
Yeah.
Hey, it's interesting. I always was a fan of the Rangers, and they had that stretch where it's heartbreaking when they were so close. But it was like everybody else spent that kind of money. And now that they're a team that interests me in because of their winning, the young talent too, it's like makes me nervous when they're spending this kind of money. That's just kind of weird, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. These days, I guess if you broke up for 2 seconds, I wouldn't know if you're talking about USC spending all this money or the Rangers.
No, it's all talking. Yeah.
Both are applicable. Yeah, I mean, I think, what's the saying? Scared money doesn't make money or whatever. Have they engaged in deals that at the end of the deals you're going to look at and be like, gosh, the clock ticking on this? Yeah, but you kind of have to play that game. And again, baseball free agency and the collective bargaining agreement is structured in a way where these guys don't become free agents at 24 or 25 years old to where you can sign them to a 10-year deal and feel good about them probably being physically at a high level throughout most of that deal. That's why signing Corey Seager was such a coup because, he wasn't 31 years old when the Rangers signed him. So, I mean, they could have to be, creative, but the beauty of these longer deals is who knows what money's going to be like 8 years from now. Corey Seager's deal in 5 years might not look that bad. And who knows where the financials of the league are at that time. I mean, you make arguments both ways, I guess, but I mean, they've definitely, you can say what you want about Chris Young, but he is aggressive and he's not scared. He's not scared to move on from prospects. And he hasn't been careless by any means. But he's not scared to make these trades. He's not scared to sign these deals. And, you're not going to be perfect with all these things. If you look at some of the best teams over the last 10 years, they have had success in a variety of ways, through free agency, trade, drafting, international signings. And by having success through those multiple avenues, it allows you a little bit of wiggle room if you don't hit every single deal you make. And so the fact that the Rangers do have these young guys who are producing, the fact that they do have this farm system that is, rife with talent, it gives them the opportunity to make some of these moves with older veteran free agents. And if they work, amazing. And if they all don't work, all right, you're probably in some trouble. But if you miss on one, or one isn't fully what you wanted it to be, all right, that doesn't mean you can't win. There's no salary cap. So one bad contract like in the NBA, where that can really just put you in a pickle, it doesn't in Major League Baseball, especially when you have an ownership group that's not only willing to spend, but willing to spend beyond the, first luxury tax threshold, which is kind of a soft cap for a lot of teams, their ownership groups, but not for the Rangers. They went above that by bringing on Max Scherzer. And so, that shows an even greater commitment to winning. And I don't want to say disregarding the money, but showing that, hey, we are going to spend to win. And at the end of the day, more often than not, if you're willing to spend the bucks, you're going to get the win.
Thank you, buddy. Jared Sandler, voice of the Rangers. He and Matt Hicks do the broadcast for the Rangers in baseball on a busy weekend, and it's not over with the trade deadline tomorrow. We come back. Jason Scheer had those tweets about an hour or so ago about some things that may be happening. Pac-12, meeting, number, deal. What? Possibly. And for some, if that's true, thank God. And for others, it's like, okay, wait a minute, what are the details? Jason.
I would tell you, if he's got it right.
Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority. We added him to the lineup, and he is next on 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco. In fact, let me get this out because Ted Teague sent this to me over the weekend, and it's for the rest of today only. It's for July 31st, the rest of the day until the dealership closes tonight. Dodge with more options, including they added an extra $1,000 to the Charger SXT to increase now the total values to $3,000 to help close out the month. The very hard to get last call 2023 Dodge Challenger Red Eye Demon that's on the showroom floor has 797 horsepower. Also, the last call on the Dodge Scat Packs that are collector's edition cars, like one of 500 that are available, the last call on them, the Dodge Charger Swinger models, and then also several models of other Challenger and Chargers. It's also the end of the month, and so if you walk on the lot tonight, go by there this evening. They have a great sales staff, client managers, general manager Ted Teague, as they're blowing it out the end of the month, and then there'll be new incentives, of course. But how about what I just told you? Ted Teague, the general manager, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
And I Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier, elite, life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bars, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
.365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Earlier today, when we started this show, 365 Sports, Craig Smoak out until next week. Paul Catalina, I'm David Smoak. Somebody asked, are you guys having Jason Scheer on today? And I mentioned, maybe not today. We'll see what happens, Arizona, if anything, over the next 3 or 4 days or weeks. And then all of a sudden, Jason Scheer, Wildcat Authority, with the story that the Pac-12, in fact, will be showing numbers, whatever that might be. And I think he has an idea from Wildcat Authority. Jason, thanks for your time. Whatever might that be, sir?
Well, there's a couple things that I think are going to be presented that I've heard are going to be presented. The first aspect of it is it's going to be heavily streaming. There is a possibility that it is all streaming, which would be Apple, and Apple would have the ability to sub-license games out to ESPN, and that would be something pitched to the Pac-12 as a possibility to gain more money. Overall, the starting value is going to be in the low 20s. I've heard it could be as low as $20 million. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like $22 billion. And then certain kind of like, let's call them escalators. Like if we get certain ratings packages, if we get certain subscriptions because of the Pac-12, those numbers would go up, and that's something that he'll likely pitch tomorrow.
So, Jason, if you are one of these teams in the Pac-12 that's been adamant, like Arizona has, we're not going to make any decisions until we see numbers, and the first numbers you see after a year, 13 months, are this low, what happens next?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and I think we're going to find out very quickly. I believe that there are schools that already know what is being presented. Robbins is on the executive committee, so I can't see him being surprised by any numbers that are presented tomorrow. And I think we're gonna find out soon. I'm not saying realignment and stuff like that is going to happen quickly because it never does. But if you're Arizona and you have an invite from the Big 12 and the first numbers that you see after a year are low and all streaming, I mean, Robbins has been on record as saying that he doesn't want it to be heavy streaming, that there needs to be a substantial linear concept, and other schools have as well. You're always going to have schools like Oregon State and Washington State that are basically going to sign whatever is put in front of them. But if you're a school like Arizona, ASU, Utah, you're kind of saying, okay, what other options are at the table? Because how much longer can we wait for another deal to be presented?
Jason, why today? Why not at big Pac-12 media days, if in fact you kind of wonder, was this known even then? Was it because they were delaying on purpose, they just felt they could tread water? Or do you feel like, my goodness, with Colorado's move, no matter who wants to make whatever comments about Colorado. They just, my God, let's do this, make it public.
Yeah, from what I understand, the way it worked out is after Colorado left, there was a Pac-12 meeting. It did not go well. The Pac-12 presidents basically say, you have to show us what you have. And part of it is the belief that the reason a deal has not been presented yet is because the deal was not good enough to present. And now that doesn't matter. The Pac-12 presidents have said, show us what you've got. We need an actual update, a term sheet that we can look at. So I don't necessarily think that this is George wanting to show them this deal as much as it's the Pac-12 presidents and AD saying, you know what, we got to see what's going on here. We need to see the numbers. You have until early next week.
Jason Shear, Wildcat Authority, with us on 365 Sports. Do you feel, and you mentioned Robbins, and there's obviously a lot of smoke. You got to believe what you got to believe or you don't, but do you feel like this is just another nail in the coffin for Arizona and Pac-12?
Yeah, I mean, look, anything can happen with realignment, but Robbins has been very vocal in saying that he wants to see the numbers, and once he sees the numbers, they'll make a decision. And they're finally seeing the numbers. And this feels very similar to how Colorado played out, which is we're going to expect to see numbers at the next meeting. We hope so. We've asked for them, and then when they didn't get numbers, they said, you know what? We're gone. We need to go where there's stability. And so this feels a lot like that, where the numbers presented tomorrow won't be good enough. Robbins will say, hey, look, we waited for them to present numbers. We gave them a year, and now we're kind of moving on. And again, there's no guarantees. I'm not saying that'll definitely happen, but that's definitely the feeling around here is that it's kind of the process has started, basically.
So all that waiting around for extra bidders didn't make their money go up.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny because he said like a week ago, the longer we wait, and now he's not waiting long. It's weird because, they didn't have a deal when Colorado left, which was only days ago. The meeting is taking place on a Tuesday early in the morning as opposed to like Friday. Like, it's very clear to me, at least, that this isn't a meeting that George necessarily wanted to have.
Yeah, it's almost like he just finally, you walked the plank, right?
Yeah, this is to me, this is a do or die meeting. Like, you know what? This is it. Like, if you don't have the numbers and other schools leave them, I don't think it's the end of the conference. I want to be clear. I think the Pac-12 is going to look. It's going to look different. I could see another 1-2 schools leaving, but the Pac-12 isn't going to go anywhere because you're always going to find schools that'll sign that type of deal. But this is like the next movement. We need to expand. We need to add schools. But in order to do that, we need to know where we are with the TV deals. We need to know which one of these schools is leaving or going. And that's kind of, with football season right around the corner, I just think it's at a big crossroads.
Is there any, the 20 million, whatever the number might be, is there anything that says this is what it is, take it or leave it, this is for 10 teams, 9 teams, 12 teams? Is there anything you think to that?
I have heard from a couple of people today that it's for 12 teams. That basically, the belief is that it's Apple, and Apple has said that they're willing to pay for up to 12 teams. And so that's part of it that I think, I've heard that George should get creative. Say, look, we're bringing in other teams, but if San Diego State or SMU or whatever will come in at half shares, you could still get a little bit more money than that 20 million. Now we're increasing it a couple million per school or whatever it may be. But, I think the goal of the Pac-12 is to remain, the Pac-12, to not go to 10 schools, to be 12, sign a deal and try to get stability through numbers.
Do you think that Arizona State always seemed to me like they wanted it, like at least at the beginning, thought, okay, well, the 2 Southern California schools are leaving. That could kind of be us. Now we could be the cool school that the SoCal kids go to in the Pac-12. Do you think this changes that for them, that they may want to head east as well?
It could. I mean, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow in the meeting and when the numbers are finally presented. But I know that up until this point, they have not been as receptive as Arizona. Arizona has very clearly been more receptive. I think there's less of an emphasis on sports with ASU school president. It wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden it's kind of a wake-up call and Robbins meet with Crow, the ASU president, says, look, you got to make this move whether you want to or not. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But, it would have to take a kind of a switch of momentum that we've seen throughout this whole cycle.
So if it has to be a certain number, and I know you got to go, Jason, and we appreciate you jumping on as always, but let's say it is 12. They're now at 9, right, with Colorado leaving. For every team they lose, it's almost like they have to add 2 to get to 12. Because you lose one and then you gain one. They got to add. They can't afford to lose. They have to add. Man, you just wonder, okay, everyone's been saying this is what they're loyal to. We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where it's at, I think. You can't drag this on because if schools leave, you need to start with the expansion process. Like, this isn't a quick process. So if you're at the Pac-12, you need to invite SMU. You need to invite San Diego State or Rice or whoever it's going to be. And if you say, we'll do it in 3 or 4 months, like, there's scheduling that needs to be done. There's other factors in this. It's not as simple as, making a phone call. And so that's why I feel like tomorrow's meeting it's it. Like, we're going to know, and I'm not saying tomorrow's meeting goes poorly, Arizona's in the Big 12 on Wednesday. I don't think that's how it'll play out. But I think we're going to know one way or another the future of the conference tomorrow.
Hey, Jason, great stuff. We appreciate it. Jason shared with the reporting earlier with the tweets we put up and also joining us 247 Sports Wildcat Authority. So tomorrow, we will know, you would think, specifics. Now, it will be interesting, and there's some of the leaking, which you kept waiting for anything to be leaked, and it will be interesting to see what the narrative is the rest of the night into tomorrow, and then what actually is exactly what is there.
If you tell me 20 million all streaming and I've got to do affiliate marketing to get my number up, I'm sorry. Like, I'm not doing that if I'm Arizona. I'm just not. I may do it. And again, it's got to be very short term. So you can maybe dig your heels in and say, all right, well, Utah, we don't want to be with BYU. That's just a bridge too far for us. We've never wanted to be. We've not been for a very long time. We appreciate not being in a conference with them. We're not only like that rivalry seems to me to be kind of beyond the, Texas and OU kind of, we don't like you and we don't like us either, but, we're in this together kind of a deal. Those universities are kind of diametrically opposed to what their long-term goals are and how they operate things. And I'm not advocating for one or the other. I don't think they like, being involved with each other. So outside of just playing a game here and there. But so if that's the case and they want to stick it out, then that's their call. But if I'm the Big 12, like I said before, I believe that one is just to make sure that you can get one, but saying that you're not going to take up to 3 would be silly because there could be 2 teams that come in there that make your league pretty valuable.
Who is tomorrow a bigger day for? Well, obviously for Kliavkoff trying to keep this thing together. Is it a bigger day for Arizona or others? Or is it a bigger day for San Diego State and SMU?
I mean,
if there's a number that they have to be at, if there's a number that has to be a 10 or 11 or a 12, and you'd think an even number, 10 or 12, the Big 12 will eventually add to 14 or 16. Could that be, if you're SMU, like, whoa, Rick Hart, the AD on the phone, president, hey, guys.
Go get it, and it'd be great for them.
But what about San Diego State, Paul? They will owe $34 million a week and a half after whatever. Does the Pac-12, who also owes Comcast money, do they then say to SMU, hey, we'll take care of that and you pay us back in increments once you join our conference? Is that even enough to do that?
I don't even know. They're going to have
for
to
them it is.
negotiate.
It's better than what they're getting now.
But look, they might be able to get them until 2025 so that they can get out. That's one of those things that you may just have to navigate that because all right, look, we're going to give you $20 million a year, which is more in the TV deal than you have now. So that's good. The problem is you're $34 million in the hole. So it's going to take you a year and a half or almost 2 years to get over that. So we're sorry about that because look, San Diego State's, is at fault, obviously, for getting themselves in that predicament in the first place. But also, the Pac-12 is a little bit at fault for,
both sides.
there's a little, they could have handled it better.
Could have handled it a lot better. Yeah.
Again,
so how frustrating is that, though?
It's so frustrating because
for San Diego State,
you could have just told them,
look, we're
gone. But here's the thing about the Pac-12. They should have just told them, you're in no matter what.
Yeah.
Because they're going to say whatever they're Are SMU and San Diego State going to say no to a P5 invite if they're not going to make as much as the Big 12? No, because they're making more anyway.
From Dustin Archambault, is there any scenario or possible realistic solution the Pac-12 can increase its value? I don't feel like they can, even if they were to add Boise or San Diego State or SMU or anyone else. I don't know. I would think it would probably be just to add numbers. Right now, numbers like meat on the bone in the conference to get to 12 or 10 or whatever might be as valuable. You don't just add somebody to add somebody. Might be as valuable getting people in your league as it is how much they bring to the league. Yeah. Because obviously there's that 20 million, if that's the right number.
Okay, you heard Softy mention if the number is 20 million, then if you took a 50% share in the Big Ten, if you were UW and Oregon, you're still making twice as much money.
40, 45, 38. Again, that's half a share. We understand that. We've even heard it might be 100 million if that, in fact, ever does come true.
If Jason's right on these numbers, and look, he's been doing, I don't know if you guys have all noticed, but he's been doing really well for about a year. Kind of letting this stuff play out in spite of the slings and arrows of many naysayers. If he's right in this ballpark, and look, 20 million to me doesn't get it to, like, you got to tell me it's at 29 or 30 for me to go, okay, I can weather the storm. But if I'm 10 million less when I have that offer on the table, like the Big 12 has at least one offer on the table for 10 million more dollars than that.
Yep.
So,
all right, JG Nialardo. I feel like this show, speaking of us, is expediting the death of the Pac-12 simply with marketing and common sense.
I think he's kidding.
I know.
With marketing,
because I don't want to take credit for whatever they have done, and Paul had his top 5 about it, but when it got to the official part of Colorado, I mean, man, there's a lot of it's like you're always like, why wouldn't they have had this last Wednesday? Or why wouldn't they have had this at Pac-12 Media Days? Even if he would have gotten up there and said, listen, damn it, this is who we are. We have $20 million in streaming, and that's it with escalators. Would it have changed anything that happened afterwards? Probably not. But at least you wouldn't have sat there and said what you said as a conference, am I right, and Kleofkoff and others who reported it. The longer we wait, the more and better the numbers are for us. Really.
Iran and Marchand said it last week. Well, that's not really how, and we had Jim Williams on last week who said this. Like, well, usually, yes, more people are coming to the table now because you're less money. Like, it's gone down. You've waited long enough, so now we can make a bid that's more comfortable for us and not for you, because waiting around longer, that just doesn't, that only works like, what I think about is when they picked up the show The Office, the U.S. Office with Steve Carell, they got lucky in that show was going to get canceled, but Steve Carell was in The 40-Year-Old Virgin that summer between they were going to do it. It was the number one movie in America, and NBC's like, well, I mean, we're not going to cancel the show with the guy who was the number one movie in America. Let's see if we can, give them some more resources to draft off this. That's not going to happen to the Pac-12 all of a sudden.
No.
Like, that's not, like, they're not going to be the number one movie in America over the next couple weeks. So that they need to figure something else out.
All right. Some of the super chats continue. We do have David Hellman on the NFL at training camps. And, man, the super chat's going crazy. Brett Bingham. And I just sent Jason Scheer a follow-up text about there's an emergency special board meeting tomorrow. Do you think it's DOA for the Pac-12? One thing I've learned through this Pac-12 negotiation is I don't know if anyone ever had more board meetings than Colorado. But colleges have board meetings, a lot of them. And they have more to deal with than athletics, but like if it's like a last-second call, man, it could be about something that they're adding to a department or something they're putting into the physics. It could be a lot of things. And by the way, Arizona's special board meeting, Arizona, Jason Scheer says he's working on it, if in fact there might be a tie-in to that. Super chat we just received from Banks Taylor. Love the show. The rumors about West Virginia moving to the ACC. What are your thoughts?
Again, I don't think I think that the rumor, the articles that came out were about why West Virginia didn't go to the ACC the last time around. Like, why didn't they add them then? And now they're in the Big 12. West Virginia is really thrilled and happy with where they are. Would it make a lot more sense for them travel-wise to be in the ACC? Yeah, I think.
Sure it does.
I remember thinking at the time, why didn't the ACC add them if they're there? Like, that'd be great. In fact, to me, West Virginia was a better ad, and no offense, I've enjoyed Boston College being in the ACC, but the better ad than Boston College, but they didn't do that. They added Louisville, great ad. West Virginia would have also been a great ad, but they, again, these conferences, they're really good at outthinking themselves, and the Big 12 was like, you want to come here? And they're like, heck yeah, we do. Let's do it. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're happy where they are. Plus, they've signed a grant of rights. So, it's not.
Yeah, and somebody asked earlier about the Florida State Clemson. They're leaving Friday. You know what? It would be amazing if they did. Can you imagine all the discussion of, oh, my God, and then all of a sudden, not only is I'm just saying, if it did, I don't want – the Big 12 has been near death 3 or 4 times, at least 2 or 3 times. So what the Pac-12 is going through, we've seen it before, blindsided, and then, oh, my God, hang on by you know what? I don't want to see conferences die. I really want to see conferences stay intact, but sometimes they do in Big East in football, right? The ACC, when they signed the long grant of rights, it was a good decision at the time.
It did, I remember thinking, okay, that's a good idea based on what the Big 12 just happened. But I also remember thinking, that still is a really long time.
That's
there's a lot
forever.
a lot can happen in the middle, and a lot has happened. But I mean, I guess all you guys on the internet who are saying that they're leaving are prestigious legal minds that have figured your way around the grant of rights that no one's figured out yet. Because if that were the case and you could take yourself to market, then the whole ACC would have. Even if they came back together, they could have said, listen, let's get rid of this grant of rights. Let's pretend we're going somewhere else. Let's get a better TV deal and come back to it. But they can't. And not to mention, they've got this contract, the grant of rights is with ESPN and the network forever. So, ESPN's not motivated to help FSU and Clemson make more money. They're not.
No, they're
why?
Not. No, they're not. And there's a lot of you asking about this and that. Now the ACC conversation. Thank you very much for being a part of it. So tomorrow, as we close it out here in about 45 minutes, tomorrow will be interesting because there's going to be some information known. There's going to be a Pac-12 meeting, whether it's a conference call, whatever it might be. And then tomorrow we have, in fact, one of the color analysts for Utah Utes football, Scott Mitchell, played in the NFL, big lefty. He's going to join us tomorrow. Plus we have, of course, other writers and analysts who will be a part of the show tomorrow. But we're not done with yet today, and this is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank, and now open on Franklin Avenue, downtown. It's 600 Franklin Avenue. I just talked to them today about some of the things they have. So look, if you are still, you've heard me talk about, local craft whiskeys, Texas craft whiskeys, and great craft beers. They've got those at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. That's kind of their bread and butter at that location. The other one, they always have the other stuff, but it's downtown. It's a bit of a different clientele. So if you're looking for that, whatever you see trending on the internet, like the cool new drinks and all those things, they've got that at the downtown location. So wherever you are, whether you're downtown Waco or you're over on Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, Riverbend Liquor and Wine has got you covered. 2 locations now. You can look them up on Facebook and Instagram. Available on DoorDash. Same great customer service, same great knowledge, same great passion for what they do, and adherence to just absolutely helping the customer out with whatever they need. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, 2 locations now. Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street behind the bank and in downtown Waco.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. But when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
5:31, David Hellman. Fox Sports, NFL training camps are alive and well. Joins us on 365 Sports. Paul?
David, obviously they spilled into another week without Zach Martin. So we'll see when that gets done. But the big news today was Jerry Jones, and once again answering the question about Jimmy Johnson, he teased everybody a couple years ago when Jimmy was getting into the Hall of Fame about being in the Ring of Honor. Do you think he's trying to walk that back because he might have had a couple of pops in him?
He does. I mean, something's up because, that was that 2 or 3 years ago? I don't know. It was at least 2 years ago, if not 3. And there's been ample opportunity to do that. And, I think Jerry Jones is a billionaire and he owns a football team, and I don't think billionaires like being told what to do. That's my expert analysis, is that he'll do it when he wants to because it's his team. And I heard a theory that, I think Jerry Jones would probably feel a hell of a lot better about putting Jimmy Johnson in the Ring of Honor after he's won a Super Bowl that is not tied to Jimmy Johnson. Now, I have no idea if that's true. Jerry Jones might deny it, but it sounds plausible to me. Or, maybe, like I said, he's just a billionaire and likes to do things on his own schedule. So it is a little odd that, like you said, he was kind of put on the spot a couple years ago, and now that he's had some time to consider it, it certainly doesn't seem like he's in a hurry to do it. I thought it was interesting too that, he declined to comment about the idea of putting DeMarcus Ware in as well, which seems like it would make sense since DeMarcus is going to go into the Hall of Fame next week. But again, it's his team, and I guess he has the final say.
Couple of pops.
Yeah.
You talk about scotch.
Yeah, I mean, look, David, you weren't there, but David, I know you were there when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I saw him around. I didn't go to the Justin Timberlake party, but I saw him around plenty. Jerry was having a good time in Canton, Ohio. There's no reason to think that he wouldn't do that every time he goes back. Now that he's walking around with the yellow jacket.
I mean, let those who live in glass houses not throw stones, because I was there in 2017 and I had a lot of pop. I had a lot of pop. So you're not going to hear any criticism about that coming from me.
David, what's going on with Jonathan Taylor?
He wants to be paid like one of the best running backs in the game, and between what's happening at the position and the fact that he was hampered by injury a lot last year, the Colts don't want to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts, talking about Jerry Jones, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Irsay is well aware of what happened when the Cowboys paid Zeke Elliott 2 years too early. Because again, the benefit of having a guy on a rookie deal is that you don't have to, pay him until they're 3 or 4 years into the league. And I think the idea is that you want to get max value on this guy and not get him off of that rookie salary until you have to. So Jim Irsay is trying to draw a hard line in the sand. I do not blame Jonathan Taylor for saying, I think Jonathan Taylor's touched the ball like 800 times in 3 years. He's not currently on a sustainable pace to be playing into his late 20s and early 30s. He's 24 years old, but in running back years, 800 carries in 3 years is a heavy mileage. So I don't blame him one bit for wanting to get his money. Right now we'll see how good Anthony Richardson is, but right now he's the best thing going on that Colts team. And, I wouldn't want to be the heartbeat of that team, for $600,000 or whatever his salary is either. So, I hope he gets it, but yeah, we're kind of at a flashpoint here where we're, just based on how dramatic it's been the last 2 or 3 days, I can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Also coming out of Wisconsin, which just now hired a coach that's not adverse to the forward pass for the first time in their history.
That's a great point. I don't think it's a coincidence that, Josh Jacobs has developed into this wonderful player, and he's one of the only Alabama running backs that's come out of school without a ton of mileage on his legs, and he's doing most of that in the NFL. So, yeah, I don't know Jonathan Taylor's college stats off the top of my head, but playing at Wisconsin, I'm sure he had a lot of carries on him when he got to the league. So even at 24 years old, I completely understand why he would put a big premium on making sure he gets at least one big contract before his legs don't work the same way anymore.
Ronald Jones suspended 2 games for violating the substance abuse policy. Does this hamper his ability to make the roster?
Ironically, it probably helps. It probably helps him because the way this works is he's going to be able to hang out on the roster and do all the same stuff. He can practice, he can play in the preseason games. And then when they cut the roster down, the league just moves him to the suspended list. So he doesn't count toward the roster total. And that's a guy that the Cowboys can take off their team during roster cuts. And, maybe it helps their decision-making process be a little bit easier somewhere else. So he'll be off the roster for 2 weeks. Now, he's got to play well enough that they want him back. That's the upshot. He's got to show that he's still got something in the tank that they should bother bringing him back from suspension. But it probably helps him that they can say, well, we're moving Ronald to the suspension list anyway, so now we can keep this impressive young linebacker that we weren't originally going to, or wherever that problem spot is. That's one less name they've got to worry about. So in a weird way, I think this is probably better for him in the long run.
You know how frustrated Zach Martin must be. Paul, you brought that up earlier. He's out, and he probably is going to be out long term. when he decides he's going to come back, whether it's probably in the preseason or even if they're back in Frisco, do they put out the red carpet for when he wants to come back to the facility?
I mean, when a Hall of Famer decides he wants to come back to the team, yeah, I don't
Sure.
think you're gonna be too stingy about that. You know, we know the nature of this stuff. I mean, we've been through plenty of contract negotiations, and some of them have gotten really feisty. DeMarcus Lawrence comes to mind very recently. You know, it was 2019. You know, Jerry quipped Zeke who about one of his favorite players of the last 10 or 15 years. I mean, this stuff happens. Zach Martin's going to the Hall of Fame. He's going to largely be thought of as like one of the Cowboys' best offensive linemen ever. So yeah, like, I mean, when this eventually settles down, all will be forgiven and all will be well. I'm not worried about that. I think it's just a matter of when, because Zach has made something like $75 million in his career. So the $2 or $3 million that he's going to lose holding out, I would imagine that's probably a price he's willing to pay if it can get him a new deal. And so now the question for me, it's got nothing to do with the relationship. It's just, how long is it going to take and who's going to blink? You know, are the Cowboys going to cave when Zach misses a couple preseason games and they realize their offensive line's not getting the work that it needs to get? Are they going to reconsider this, or are we going to get all the way to the regular season before Zach eventually says, all right, enough is enough. I tried and I lost and I've got to get to work. It's hard for me to imagine that he would miss game checks. You just don't see that in this day and age very often. But again, I mean, hey, it famously worked out for Emmitt Smith. I mean, I know that was 30 years ago, but it did. So, you know, it's possible. Like I said, it would be surprising, but that's my big thing is just, are we playing this game for another week, for another 2 weeks, or are we still playing this game when the Wednesday before the season opener rolls around? It'll be interesting to see who blinks first.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. David Hellman.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Fox Sports covers the NFL. Also, for the longest time, Cowboys only at DallasCowboys.com, but very much has become a rock star at Fox Sports when it comes to NFL coverage. And now, if you look up and down your Twitter feed or X feed, there are numerous. Jason Scheer was on with us, 40 minutes ago or so. Mm-hmm. There are I think, pretty much national writer that you might either like or not. Here's another guy, Chris Cartman. He covers Arizona State. He put out a note about why would ASU wait for a Colorado and Arizona to pull the trigger, including ASU, any Pac school, without an open-minded Big 10, Big 12 invitation, is playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in the revolver. 5 bullets, that's all there's room for. If they were relying on the other members to all stick together after USC and UCLA. The special board meeting that was brought up, and I cannot remember, and I apologize on the chat room about what does this have to do with anything. Jason Scheer said, oh my God, well, it appears to have some smoke to it.
Yeah, and he said he tweeted out what the meeting's about, and right now it doesn't appear to be realignment related, but this is also after the 9:30 meeting tomorrow morning, so it might come up when Bobby Robbins goes, okay, well, here's what I found out this morning, so do with that what you will.
Yep. And Jason just put up an image of salaries and discipline, resignation, public, all that, that it could be just a lot of personnel and nothing to do with anything else. But it sure is interesting, and I tell you one thing, as I mentioned, Colorado has more board meetings than anyone I've ever known, and Arizona might, every time they put up a board meeting, everybody's going to go nuts. Doesn't mean it has anything to do with anything that George Kliavkoff presents to conference presidents tomorrow, but it is interesting. It was special, a specially called meeting, and so there you are with that. When we come back, Paul Catalina and the top 5.
The future's bright, the time is now.
College is what you make it. It's a late night pizza run and all-nighters coding a new project. It's having big dreams and making them a reality. It's a professor who knows your name and your story. It's preparation for your future, your calling, your life. And at Baylor, it's even more. Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Where is the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu from our pasture to your plate at TexasBeefHouse.com. Samantha Duvall joins us. She's the marketing director who knows all of the specials and also the events coming up. And thank you very much, as always, for your time. So all of these holidays are over. We've hit the meat of, literally, of the summer. And your thoughts about as you hit the month of August and into football season, Samantha?
Football season's right around the corner, so that means it's perfect time for tailgating. The best time to grab our hamburger patties is right now through the end of July. We still have our sale going on with our regular patties and our jalapeno and cheese patties. They're $12 a package, so that's 4 patties to a package. It's perfect for the time for football. Gather all your family around. That way you can grill it up.
Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house. When you order from Texas Beef House, unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu and how they age it as well. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 realignment rumors or sayings or things to be wary of, because we're in the crazy times right now, and anything with a Pac-12 has more weight than anything anywhere else. But I just want you to, when you look at things, and don't fall down a rabbit hole. This is more public service. I care about people, Smokey. I don't want them, deep at night, like figuring out how Clemson and Oregon can somehow get to the Big Ten by way of the Big 12. Don't hurt your head.
So what was the tweet, Ross Dellinger's tweet? Believe nothing. Well, I'll find it, but it's similar to what you're saying because it could drive you crazy. How long did it drive you crazy with just one team leaving a year later in Colorado?
Exactly. So number 5, that anything is for sure. So if you hear this is for sure, nothing is for sure until the board, the group of distinguished people that have different walks in life, until the board votes on it, like we saw in Colorado, that's the only time it's for sure.
Right.
Now, you can start to believe things are for sure when they've been reported for 24, 48 hours or so before these meetings, and said university hasn't come out and gone, no, whoa. So those are also good indicators, but sometimes that doesn't even mean things are for sure. They're just trying to get through the storm.
Yeah.
So don't, when you say for sure this is done, those are the key indicators, as opposed to a lot of people going, absolutely, UConn's going to be in the Big 12 come Thursday next week. It's not for sure. It certainly could happen, but there's a lot of things that could happen in between there. And it's less likely to happen than other scenarios.
How do you know when your spaghetti noodles are done?
Yeah, they stick to the wall.
You throw them up against the wall, a refrigerator, or the oven, and it sticks. It like Super Spider-Man. Be careful of those who throw a lot of those noodles against the wall that don't stick.
By the way, for the wedding, got a La Crusette, like one of those cast iron Dutch oven, big Dutch ovens.
Oh, really?
Made some meatballs
like
in them.
One of those is 2 burners?
It's like, no, it's 1 burner. Big, best meatballs I've ever made in that thing.
Damn.
Yeah, flavor. You've
made some good ones.
Yeah. Number 4, that there's a Pac-12 media deal ready. I know what we heard today, and I still don't think this one is totally true. I don't think this is, and this deal is in case of emergency break class. That doesn't really mean that it's really ready for the rest of the conference.
Right.
But it's something. So when you hear that, until we hear it tomorrow, because, and look, Jason Scheer, a lot of people have reported that they're going to see numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a deal either, because this could just be kind of the first offer sheet or whatever, like parameters, because they haven't even seen that in the Pac-12.
Right.
They have no idea what the parameters even being discussed are. So that there's a deal ready, I mean, I don't even believe that even after tomorrow completely.
Man, I agree with you.
But
he just has to strip down naked in what's there.
Yeah,
not George. God
No,
knows, but yeah. Although maybe which is the ugliest thing to look at.
Yeah. Number 3, that X school is just ready to jump. That at any moment they're just going to jump. That they can do it. Now this is easy for the Pac-12 because they can. Colorado did it. Arizona could do it. Oregon and Washington could do it. All these schools could just do it right now if they have an offer somewhere else to go. They can just jump. But when you talk about the ACC, the Big 12, like any other conference, even look, San Diego State, you would think that would be a pretty easy thing for them to call up and be like, hey, we're making a bunch of money. And then their conference is like, don't care.
Yep.
Here's how much you owe us. This is the contract you signed. They're like, yeah, but could you give us 30 more days? They're like, why would we do that? Because we're friends. Nah, we're not that good of friends.
The $20 million, if that's the number, which I think Brian Etheridge and some of those on the board have mentioned that from the beginning, that doesn't include what they owe Comcast.
Yeah. So that's going to get, and that's going to be litigated out for probably a couple of years.
But let's say that's $2.5 million a year, or is it 5 over 3 or 1, or is it 5 overall? I don't know.
Yeah. Number 2, that conferences are ready to go to 20 teams. I don't think that there is an appetite for this right now, which might be the Pac's saving grace in that they can maybe add some teams with however many they have to add. So say they had to add 4 because they lost 4 this cycle. So they're at 8. And they add San Diego State, SMU, UNLV, and Boise State. I'm just throwing those out because those to me would be the most likely and ready to go and sign on the dotted line if they could. So say they add those 4 teams and they could be at 12 teams for 6-7 years until the next deal's up. I do not think that in this cycle that conferences are totally ready to commit to 20 teams in a league, and it has nothing necessarily to do with football, although it does really wreck your cool scheduling model that you've built,
right,
and pushes that out a little bit further. I don't think they're ready because they have to figure out how to navigate these cross-country trips, especially the Big Ten, with the Olympic sports, and that is
what Softy mentioned.
Yeah, that is that's a travel agent's nightmare. Where they're like, hey, I need to get to Piscataway, New Jersey on Tuesday. I need to be back in Madison, Wisconsin on Thursday, and then back in Los Angeles on Sunday. Like, that is a lot.
You know who should get more money with all this expansion and realignment? The people who put together the schedules.
Oh, dear, yes. The advanced,
they're not getting paid enough.
The advanced teams that, for women's basketball, they have to go to a place and make sure that the hotels have enough Gatorade and all these different things. Yes, because they're going to have...
And the people in each program that are in charge of that for, the women's basketball program.
Exactly.
Do the reconnaissance, so to speak.
Yeah. They're going to be getting calls the boy is 5 years old now. He said it. I missed his birth. It's going to be crazy. Their schedule is going to get rocked with what they've been used to. Number 1, that any ACC teams could leave at any time. They can't. It's going to be difficult. Now, I do believe that Florida State will be at the forefront of making noise about the money from now until the money either gets better when the new deal is signed 13 years from now, or from now until they find a time to go to a place that will give them more money. But that is not immediate, because if they could have, they would.
Yep.
They could just say, like, Florida State and Clemson could be out right now and say, hey, make us the best offer. I also don't think that the SEC is just ripe to grab FSU and Clemson. Like, they would do it, but I don't think that there's sentiment in that conference to bring in schools that have won it to make it even more difficult.
If they do that, the one way we might actually see the SEC play non-conference games.
Okay.
They'd have to,
right? Here's the deal. Do you know who I would think would be against this more than, like, say, their rivals in the conference? Like Alabama, honestly, Alabama could add anybody. Georgia, they're not going to care. They're like, come to our place and we'll put you in the wood chipper, and if you make it out, good for you. But I would be, if I'm Vanderbilt and I'm doubling down on my athletic department for the first time in a generation, and then all of a sudden Clemson's coming in, I'm like, well, crap, man.
Because you get knocked down another peg, even if you're trying not to be that peg. And then what about Florida?
Well, in Florida, here's the thing.
What about South Carolina?
Here's the thing that's interesting about Florida to me is I think that they would fight this just because of the natural rivalry that's been between these two schools forever. But they're also they're just now getting back in their facility cycle.
Yep.
So you don't want to add two schools that are ahead of you in that cycle right now, where you're trying to build back up to where you are the Gators that everybody knew again. So, yeah, I would think that it would not be just that easy for them to leave. And I also don't think the Big Ten is knocking on the door either.
If Florida was to win that battle, A&M would be on the phone with Sankey going, what the hell, man?
Yeah, I know.
Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, there we go. So much still unknown, even though there was evidence uncovered last week with Colorado and the Pac-12 and the Big 12, and now tomorrow where there will be apparently a number. And Jason Scheer reporting that's around $20 million, that it's almost all streaming with some escalators, and who else knows what that might be. Golly, it never ends.
Yeah, escalators are not helping me out. I want rocket ships.
I'm trying to think of what is it.
I just don't want to go up 2
you have
levels.
Escalators? Is it like you get escalators, you kick in or whatever? Thank you to everybody today in the text line or through the text line, and also the super chat and the chat room. We appreciate you so much. I do want to say this to Kim Coulter. I was down in Florida to see my brothers, Robert, Michael, and Philip. And what he was able to put together, and he doesn't want me to get into details, but what he was able to do for my oldest brother, Robert's 69th birthday, was once in a lifetime, unbelievable, with his generosity and also contacts. And it was something that was, I can't explain it, but Kim, thank you so much. And thanks to the great, I will say his name along with Kim, Rocky Patel, the cigar aficionado. Craig is back on Monday of next week. Paul and I are here tomorrow. Will be another busy day. Garrett Ross, Jack McKenzie. Thanks to our amazing sponsors. This is 365 Sports, and good night.